Kyle, all that was for nothing?
All that was for nothing. So here we
Your
go.
TVs are okay. It was
Your
Kyle's
TVs
fault.
are okay. I had the mic on mute. Sorry about that.
Bad production.
It is. Anyhow,
Go home.
new technology here. Welcome to the 2021 playoff show. It's be back to the playoffs finally after a 2-year hiatus, thanks to COVID. But we're here and we get to talk playoff football. With me, I have former head coach of Orangeville, Jay Doyle. I have our Three Rivers guru, Greg Pruis, as well. If you don't know this guy, you need to know this guy. This is Greg Armstrong from @View from the West Pod. You can find him on Twitter @View from the West Pod. And I have co-founder Shane Klever as well.
Everyone's favorite.
Everybody's favorite critic.
That was my personal
So, without further ado, what we're going to do is we're going to go through the different classifications. We're going to start in 8-man. Go class 1A, 2A, and 3A. We're going to go through, talk about probable matchups, teams to watch, players to watch. And then as the the pairings get released, we're going to bring you the actual pairings and then talk about the pairings that we do see and matchups that we see and go through and start to do some predictions as well. So without further ado, we're going to start in 8-man. I'm going to turn it over to Jay. I want you to talk about some of the teams that you face, considering that you're still involved with the Orangeville program, players that you've seen that stood out to you, and what you think can happen here as we go forward.
Well, I think when you start looking at it, you got to start with Polo. 9-0, ran the table. Had a tough one last night with Aquin. It wasn't so tough by the end of it with a big win. They're the number 1 seed. So I think to everybody that's looking at it, they probably think that they're the top team. But I will go with what I said last year when we talked at the end of the year, and I think it will still hold true. I think your favorite is down below. I think it's your 2 and 3 seed. That is your Milledgeville Missiles and your Orangeville Broncos.
And I would have to say that I probably have to agree with you. Right now, there's no hotter team in 8-man football than the Milledgeville Missiles.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen that play out when you guys played them here a couple weeks ago in a 56-26 loss for the Broncos. But Polo does come in as the de facto defending state champion, as there was no playoff in 2020, and they were the 12-0 state champs in 2019. So you got to give them kind of that, but I would definitely agree. I mean, Milledgeville's only loss is to Polo back in week 1, where they lost 40-38, but they were also getting familiar to 8-man play, and I believe Coach Roble and his staff have done a great job of making different adjustments.
Well, I think when you look at it, Polo now, by being the 1 seed, has the best way to get there, and you got to get there. And if you look at the bottom part, you have Milledgeville, Aquin, and Orangeville. I don't know what Martinsville.
Yep.
I remember Martinsville they were always beating us from like the lowest 11-man team in Illinois.
The Blue Streaks.
Yes, but so it's great to see them that could be a matchup if Orangeville and Martinsville can win. That could be a round 2. That would kind of be cool. I know we looked for a game with them probably 3-4 years ago when we played Cumberland. So you got a lot of good teams down below. You don't know what the 4th seed West Central is, because every time they played a team from the north, they had their five starters out. So they were probably at the beginning of the year I think they were the number 1 ranked team. So, but again, you got to look at Polo. They won it 2 years ago. They went undefeated again. I think they get there, and I think the 2 that battle it out to go to meet them will be the 2 and 3 seed, Orangeville and Milledgeville.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely agree with your statement on West Central. We obviously came into the season and they were the number 1 favorite heavily, coming off of an undefeated regular season in the spring season. They return a lot of players from that team, most notably running back Caden Drosty, a junior. You also had Devin Shaw returning. And then you add guys like Mason Carnes, Devin Shaw, and Brady McGraw into that fold. And like you stated, we saw them come up here and they played Amboy, they played Aquin, they got routed in both those games without 5 starters.
You take 5 starters off any team, let alone take 5 starters off any 11 or 8-man team. you're not going to be very good.
So, and I've mentioned this in a couple conversations and on podcasts with Greg as well on his A View from the West pod, and I've said the exact same thing. West Central is definitely a team that you need to watch out for. Coach Kirby down there has done a great job assembling this team. He's got a lot of experience in different realms, and he's been able to bring that forward in the 8-man game, and they've been very explosive. And I still, right now, to me, they're definitely a team to watch, especially in that upper quad where Polo sits currently. And I think that's going to be a great matchup once we get to the quarterfinal or semifinal round.
Yeah. And again, everybody, all of them have to beat the teams that are in front of them. But, I mean, you just see it in 8-man. You see them 70 to 20 games or the 50 to 20 games. There's a big gap from your top to your bottom. Even in these setup.
Right.
I think that's what becomes so significant with the bracketing being a 1 through 16.
Mm-hmm.
So we talk about the potential best matchups. We're saying semifinals or quarterfinals. We're not saying second round, which is
like
awesome.
a 1A.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we'll get there. But that's what I love is that Polo, Milledgeville, Orangeville, Ackwen, you go down the list. Some of the teams that I think we feel like are the best 8-man teams in this area, Orangeville, sorry, didn't want to leave them out there. But they're all separated in the bracket, so that's huge.
Mm-hmm.
So talking about some players that you've seen, obviously you got a great one in your stable with Gunnar Lobdell. Big time yardage. I don't know what his stats were from last night, but so far going into that game on the season, 1,648 yards rushing, 28 touchdowns for the Broncos. Definitely a big contributor on the defensive side of the ball for you guys as well. What more do you see out of them?
Well, I think they just got to play their game. I think you look at every top team and you can identify one top player. And if you can stop them, whether it be Brogy from Ackwen, Lobdell from Orangeville, the Nye kid from Milledgeville.
Oh, that kid's a stud.
Yeah, he's electric. and I think that's the thing with Polo. They have a couple kids. They have the Saltow and the Grenoble that both do it. So they got a couple guys. But I think those guys are going to show up. I think the difference is going to be what do your other guys do in that. And I think that's going to be the difference from who moves on and who doesn't.
Sure. As far as Ackwen, I mean, obviously you were there last night, like you stated. Evan Brogy's had a big year. He's had 983 yards rushing going into last night's game with 428 yards receiving. Big difference maker for the Bulldogs, both offensively and defensively as well. Obviously, Ackwen has been missing one of their key guys, Cade Geiken, all season long. Expected to return first-round playoffs. How much of a difference can he provide for Ackwen offensively and defensively?
I don't know anymore. You don't know what, if you're not there week 1 through 9, are you going to be ready week 10? And what type of shape are you going to be in? Heck of a player, but you just don't know. I mean, that's one of the question marks they have. They should get a pretty solid game against Amboy, but then in round 2, they got Milledgeville. So that's going to be a big one for them, looking to round 2, can you play your way into? And they played them tough for a half. When they played them, I think it was 2020, if I remember right. But, again, I think it comes down to the top players and then just not turning the ball over and getting stops. That's the biggest thing in 8-man football is scoring at the right time and not turning the ball over because you're going to score. It's just you can't flip. And that's what happened last night. You were at the Polo Ackwen game at 16-6. They give up a touchdown right before half, and then they score again, and before you know it, it's 30-6. And that's what happened Orangeville at Milledgeville.
Yep.
The same thing. But that's also what happened Ackwen at Orangeville. Orangeville was able to do that against Ackwen and turn the game around. So that's the biggest thing when you're playing the top teams are playing. That's going to be the biggest thing that you're gonna see in those games.
Sure. Now, let's take a look at Clay Ludeking. Obviously, we've seen a lot of things out of him this year as well, as far as a big guy in the backfield, can do a lot of things, plays linebacker as well. Saw a couple different plays last night in that game where he could have or did make a difference by blowing up an offensive lineman. But Polo was very good at the adjustments that they made to combat that as well. But what kind of a difference maker is Clay for Ackwen?
I think it's going to come down, whether it be 11-man football or 8-man football, it gets to the offensive and defensive line. And that's where I think in watching last night's game, I think that was the most thing I took away was, seeing the Akron teams of the past couple of years. They don't have that. They have not seemed like they've had that road grader mentality that they had when they had. And granted, they had some really good backs with the Gustafson kid, but they look the part. They look all the thing. But when Polo and these teams that are much smaller are moving them around, I think it just didn't seem like the Akron teams of old, and that's the biggest thing I took away from it.
Awesome.
And that's where a guy can maybe help.
Right. Another thing that we noticed too was Aiden Wolf at quarterback. Obviously, he's had 1,400 yards passing going into last night's game with 16 touchdowns. And we saw last night where there was some inefficiencies in the pass game, most notably with the pass rush, the offensive line allowing that pass rush to get into his face, forcing quick throws. Obviously, they would need to shore that up a little bit to make that more effective. But really what Polo did last night is they took advantage of that pass rush and basically eliminated Akron from running the ball at all, too.
Yeah, it was either a run up the middle that didn't go anywhere or a fade.
So
that's what it was the whole night. It was either one of those two things. And, it seemed like when they played the couple games I've seen Akron, they're about 2 steps away from connecting on that fade, which would change a game around. But right now, if they start hitting on those, they could do some damage. Round 2 against Milledgeville, but that'll be the big thing. But yeah, I mean, they were either run the football up the middle, not get anywhere, and either throw a quick comeback or drop back and throw a fade to Brogy, and that's where they were at last night.
Now, one of the guys that we talked about already was Connor Nye. Obviously, he's been a difference maker for the Missiles. 1,079 yards passing, 390 yards rushing, combined for 32 touchdowns already on the year before last night's game. And that's even including a bye week in one of those weeks. And he's only a sophomore. I'm telling you, this guy is something else. He's a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, I think when people talk about the Lobdell being the best player, the Nye kid, it's like 1A, 1B, and you're not wrong with either of them. One's a quarterback, one's a running back. But I think those are your 2 top players in 8-man football. And I think everybody would agree with that.
Awesome. So other teams to watch, obviously, we talked about Amboy. Basically, Amboy goes by way of Tucker Lindemeyer at quarterback position, 520 yards passing, 524 yards rushing, 17 total touchdowns before week 9. And then you got Kai Cook at the running back along with Dylan Daniels. You just faced Amboy here, 3 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago, somewhere in there.
It's all blurred.
Yeah, I know.
It was a week or 2 ago, probably somewhere in there.
What do you think Amboy can do, especially being where we see them paired up here potentially at the 10 seed, getting ready to take on potentially Akron in the first round?
I think Akron moves on. I think they're the better team. I think it's a Akron Milledgeville round 2. I think it's great. They get the playoff, but I just think Akron is too good. Their skill athletes are too good. And that's what I think. That's why I think they have a shot in every game, is because in the games I've seen, they're a step or 2 away, or they get a clock turn on them where they get down 2 or 3 scores in an 8-man football. That's a huge turn. But I see Akron moving on.
As far as Polo, obviously we talked about Grenoble and Solto there. Khalil Sankey really stood out last night too at wide receiver. I mean, there was a couple opportunities that didn't go the way that they could have or should have, but overall his play is definitely a factor for the Marcos. And I thought that the play of Tyler Murdian at quarterback was very good. I felt like he handled the offense very well. It's kind of funny because he reminds me of the old Milledgeville quarterback.
He does the old low to the ground.
Yes, I love it. I love it, and he's good on his feet in that way, in that stance. But overall, I felt that his command of the offense looked really good. Maybe not so much effective in the pass game, but it was very effective, especially on the 2-point conversions.
No, like I said, Polo is by far my top would be my top pick coming out of the top. They're a 9-0 team. They beat everybody they played. They won the title 2 years ago. They're a great football team. They got 38 kids now on the sideline, which is great because they were hurting for numbers. And by them doing what they're doing and have the success, you have the kids come out. And that was the whole point of, 8-man.
Right.
I think people get misviews of what 8-man is about.
Thank you.
But what it did for Polo, easy Shane.
I'm glad I'm not sitting between you.
That's why he's over there and I'm over here.
I behave.
Yeah.
I mean, I make those comments about Akron being a better team, and I'm shot. So
Hey, nobody's getting shot tonight. I don't see anywhere on here Dakota on here. Shane.
Oh my God.
We're talking playoff team.
We got like
We're
playoffs.
talking playoff.
you don't have to worry about Dakota that conversation.
We got like 2 hours left, boys.
Oh,
We're really getting into it here.
I'll say that was early.
But anyways, back when they switched from it, I know they were really low on numbers, and now some of that success now they have, and a lot of it, I think we looked at their roster last night, and they're mostly freshmen, sophomores.
Right. 20 kids.
So they're very young in that. So I think they have the talent coming up. I think Milledgeville has the talent coming up. I think a lot of these teams you see on here have talent coming up, and I think it's going to be exciting for the next couple of years.
Another team I'm really interested in, and I don't know how much you know about them, was Milford Cisna Park. I got to watch them play Aquin week 4, I think it was, but they were affected by COVID. They had a couple players out, including Sawyer LaFoon, their quarterback. They had placed their running back, Angel Salinas, there at the quarterback position. But now that we're seeing a healthy Bearcats team, and granted, they were the runner-up to Polo in 2019. I think we're going to start to see them rise towards the top. Obviously, they don't quite have record-wise. They're 6-3, but they did pull out a big win today over Flanagan Cornell Woodland as well to help boost their seeding today, and made me go into a total collapse of my entire projection of the playoffs.
Yeah, we've seen that.
Yeah.
That's that Dakota education.
Yeah.
That E plus P plus, what's that again?
E plus R equals O.
I got you.
And O means 0 wins.
But I think with Sam Cabe there, Chase Cloutier, Ashton Sparks, and Luke Truman, I think the Bearcats can definitely provide a good play. Obviously, they're going to most likely get Pawnee in that first round matchup. I've heard that people down south feel that Pawnee is better than MCP is, but obviously we're going to find out real quick here. But then you got Polo waiting most likely in round 2.
Yeah. And again, I think the consensus would be Polo is everybody's favorite.
Yeah.
Those that didn't see it or not, any 8-man games, you know when you're 9-0, you're 9-0. And normally when you're coming from NUIC, if you're 9-0, you're a pretty good football team.
Yeah. Another team that we want to talk about, St. Thomas More. Obviously, they have very good combination. You guys see them here in week 2 when you guys went down to Champaign and that rain game that you guys had down there. But Adonai Boomba obviously is a running back for them, being looked at by the University of Illinois right now. I'm sure he's getting looked at by other colleges too. And then they have quarterback Justin Green, who's also a difference maker for the Sabres. When I talked to you earlier this year, you felt that between you and Willie, you guys both felt that St. Thomas More had a lot more athletes than what you guys had. What do you think that they need to do to make those athletes shine?
Well, I think you get caught up in the fact that everybody says they got a Division I recruit.
Right.
I think that's when you go into the game and everyone's like, hey, you're playing a running back that's getting recruited by Illinois. And you're like, really? And you got to play them in 8-man where it's more wide open. But at the end of the day, we ended up victorious. I think we had more yardage and everything on them. And, I think it's the most shocking part is they're 5-4. I think that's the most shocking part is I thought they would be a 7-2 type team. And we have them down as 5-4, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So I'm not sure what
Well, one of those losses was from week 1. They
Forfeited that one.
They
So that's
forfeited that
6-3.
one. They had won 34-0, but had to forfeit due to the use of an ineligible player. And then I'm not sure. Obviously, they had the loss to you guys. They had their loss today.
Yeah, which was a shocking one.
Martinsville and Flanagan Cornell Woodland were their other losses.
There you go. Thanks, Greg, for
Yeah.
pitching that information.
Yeah.
Quick
but,
on
but
that.
their last 2 weeks, so they're coming off back-to-back losses heading into the playoffs. It's just not exactly the momentum you want, right?
No,
Season.
absolutely. And, St. Thomas More is one of those teams that we were definitely looking at coming out. And I caught heat earlier in the year, too, with our Decatur Lutheran fans because obviously they had gone 6-0 in the spring season. And, they're giving me a little bit of heat on Twitter, and I appreciate it because, honestly, I was overlooking them. But here they are. Where we got them sitting right now? Are they at 5-4? So obviously they probably thought they'd be a little bit higher. They do have 2 of those losses are due to COVID. I was hoping that we could have seen them up here because they were scheduled to play polo at one time. But they are led by Leighton Miller, who's a sophomore, and then they got Gannon Harshman at running back, who's a senior. And a couple other people there. You got Devin Brady and Logan Blundy. I still feel that the Lions can make a little bit of noise here. Obviously, they draw a potential tough first-round matchup with our aforementioned team, West Central Heat. I don't know much else on Decatur Lutheran, but they're definitely a team I'm looking out for. And like you just mentioned, Greg, the Flanagan Cornell Woodland Falcons are definitely a team to watch out for as well. J.D. Ruddy, Jesse Simpson, at the running back positions. You got Sam Jones at a wide receiver position, and then you got Phoenix Cooper on the offensive and defensive lines. I think that they can have a little bit of size with athleticism that can help see what we got going there as well.
Well, another thing, you mentioned about the spring season, we saw a lot of teams that had good spring seasons, and COVID kind of took that away. I mean, even in 11-man, we had teams that had 1 loss in the spring, then, the season's gone.
Right.
You don't get to play anymore. You're done.
Yeah.
Well, you look at Galena.
Yeah, they went
They're
5-1.
They're 5-4. They make the playoffs for the first time since 2015. But what would they have done last
They
year
would
at
rather had
5-1?
last year. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, yeah, because I think this year they match up possibly that forced them.
Yeah.
1-1.
That is. And that's a good break in because now we're going to go into 1A as we have talked about these 8-man teams. And it's a great transition. You led it right there, Shane. Obviously, we saw up here last night in the NUIC a big game of 2 giants that we've seen over the past few years. We're talking Lena Winslow and Forreston. They've combined to win 6 of the last 7 Class 1A state titles. Lena Winslow entered that game heavy favorites, happened to come out with the loss as time expired. Forreston getting that win 22-20. Obviously, it was a shock around the state because everybody from all over the place has been asking me all night and all day what happened. And to be quite honest, I don't know. I was not there.
Is it really a shock though anymore? I mean, after 2018 when they met in the semifinals, I mean, everybody had Lena Winslow killing them to go on to state, and they ended up losing that one.
That's because Doyle's boy Bodicher was on that team.
My man crush.
Yeah.
Because I mean,
Maybe he's watching.
Yeah.
because
He might be, Gary, if you're out there. Doyle loves
Yeah.
it.
everybody went to the EPC GCMS game thinking there wasn't. I was there. Yeah. And everybody thought there's no way in heck there's a game in Lena.
Obviously, when you're looking at rivalry games, which Lena Winslow and Forreston have definitely become a big rivalry over the last few years, you got to throw records aside and you got to be ready to play. And, 2018 was a great example of that when these two teams met in the semifinals. Earlier in the year, Lena Winslow routed Forreston in a 36-16 win, but it was more dominating than that finals score. But then they get to the semifinals, and Lena Winslow's coming off that big defeat over Aurora Christian. And Forreston comes in, and Lena Winslow gets caught on their heels, overlooking them a little bit. A couple errors and mistakes in their own territory led to quick scores by Forreston to take a commanding 20-8 lead at that time. And then they had to battle back just to tie it up at halftime. But it set the tone for the rest of that game and led to Forreston's third state championship as well.
I think no bigger fans of Forreston than Abingdon Avon, because as they're losing their game in week 9, and I hear people talking on the sidelines, well, this will probably cost us. We're going to lose that number 1 seed. Little did they know that, what was happening up this way. So,
Right.
because then in projections, I think they should hold on to it now. They should be the number 1 seed, I think.
Yes, at 8-1, there's only 2 8-1 teams. It's A-Town and your Marquette Crusaders. And obviously A-Town's got the playoff points there. So that's definitely a lock. I mean, we can state that right now. A-Town's going to be the number 1 seed for sure. They hold on to that because of Lena Winslow's loss last night. So that was a big game for Lena Winslow because it definitely changed where they're going to stand in these seedings come later tonight. Obviously, some other teams that we've seen, it's kind of hard to get a grasp of where they're at. They get blown out by Lena Winslow. They barely hold on to beat Galena in week 1. Granted, that is a week 1 matchup, so you kind of got to.
Seems forever ago.
Yeah. And it was hotter than heck in week 1. Let's be honest. There was a lot of heat that week. But they come back and then they beat Forreston. And then we watch what happened last night between those 2 teams. So obviously a lot of eyes are on the NUIC right now. How are these 7-2 teams really? I honestly, in my opinion, I think that these 3 teams are still legitimate title contenders, and I wouldn't want anybody else to think otherwise. I feel that the 2 8-1 seeds that we have probably are not necessarily as strong as people may think, but it's going to lead to some interesting matchups as we move forward too. I think the 1A North is definitely something to look at.
Yeah, I think when you look through the northern half of this bracket, I think Forreston winning really kind of vaults all those teams up. I think it makes them all look tougher because you got Fulton who beat Forreston and Forreston who beat Lena Winslow, and Lena Winslow, like you said, took care of Fulton. Like they've all gone back and forth, so it almost really solidifies that they're all right there. On any given day, they can be the best team. So,
Whoops, hit the wrong button there. Okay. Sorry about that.
I think it really solidifies how good those teams are.
It makes mentally where you can see, hey, look at this, we can beat them. So that's always something that helps.
And I think that was the most shocking thing about the Forreston Lena game was they took a 20-8 lead going into the 4th.
Wow.
And I would say, how often do you see Lena give up 2 touchdowns? And I think for both sides, I think if you see Lena turn it on now, I think they'll take that last drive of where they allowed, I think it was 22 play, 89 yards, scoring with 1 second left.
Yes. Yep.
But I think if you see Lena fall off and Forreston take it, they're going to, you can use it both ways. Right. But what's concerning is 2 weeks prior to that, Dupec gave up that big lead to Lena. They took the lead. And then something I never thought I'd see, Dupec run the football right at them and go down. And when they were down, that's your team.
The Rivermen are awesome, man. I'm sorry, but they have come a long ways from where they were in 2019. They've done a great job of building, and they did take control of that game when they played Lena Winslow, and they did it with.
But 2 years ago, would you say Dupec would have the leading rusher in the conference?
No.
And they would take, once they gave up that lead, they would then run the football right at Lena to take the lead.
I think what's helped them out, and we've discussed this, is the addition of Dan Blackburn on their staff.
I think you add everything up, that's the one change.
Right.
And their offensive and defensive line.
But we'll get to Dupec later.
That's 3A. But
on your point though about the drive, being down 20-8, because I was just catching the scores. I wasn't watching the game, but I was following you guys and keeping up with the score updates. That's more surprising, back to Shane's point, that Forreston beat them. Because it always seems like that happens. Whether it's in the playoffs or you got a team up in this conference, and again, I'm just watching from afar.
Right.
But it happens. It happens in the playoffs. The team will win during the season.
That's the bad thing. That's the bad thing for Forreston right now, because whoever normally won the regular season then flips it. So that's the.
And I still say for Fulton, just as a oddity, is they've only played all these teams once. And you can scout, watch film till you're blue in the face. but familiarity it might not help Fulton, it might not help their opponent, but it does give them something if they're coming into a game. They don't, Lena Winslow knows what Forston's going to do, and Forston knows what Lena Winslow's going to do.
Well,
Fulton doesn't know necessarily exactly what they just haven't played them as often, and vice versa. So those games could almost some way, if Galena played Forston again, let's say, maybe they win by 3 touchdowns. It's just one of those things.
yeah, no, there's a lot of validity
Of a new team in a conference.
Was Fulton banged up a little bit against Lena Winslow?
Yes, they did get a little bit banged up. I know that Lower
Was out for a
came
while.
out because they had
I know it was raining and
Balin
windy.
Dam off in the quarterback position there. Yeah,
And I think that would
Hey,
hurt Fulton
Rock
worse than it
Iron's
would
watching.
Lena Winslow.
Rock Iron's watching. He's not going to listen to your BS about weather.
He's still wrong. He's still wrong. And he doesn't have a microphone, so I got it.
That's true.
I got it. Just like I said, Lena Winslow I don't think they care if they ever throw. They'll just run it anyway. But I think Fulton's part of their offense is the passing game. It does get a little harder to throw it around when it's raining and windy.
Hey, I'm going to say whatever. I'm going to say exactly what Ryan says. See, he even gave us a smiley face. So I told you he was watching. He's going to say it. Both teams got to play in that weather. You can make up all the issues you want, but didn't we see Hunter Hoffman
Lena
throw for
Winslow
7
didn't
touchdowns
drop it.
against you last year in the rain?
I'm not saying it can't happen.
I don't remember
I'm
that
saying
one. I try not to remember that one.
One team doesn't throw the ball, so
Yeah, we really
it
thought
doesn't affect their passing game at all.
that was one of our hopes. It was like pouring down rain, and we're like, hey, we're gonna play Dupac and see what happens,
Yeah, it didn't work out.
And that Bianchi kid on turf was fast.
Well, he should be.
In the
He's
mud,
an all-state sprinter.
not so fast.
He's
So
an all-state
that's
sprinter.
I'm telling you,
At
that's-
140 pounds. But no, you're right. He had a lot of speed. I agree. Yeah. Bianchi was a stud. Where's he
There's
at now?
times when the weather
Running track
affects
at
certain
BYU,
teams other
ain't he?
than others. Correct.
Yeah, he's
Correct.
running track at BYU. He was fast. I'll give you that. But
Thanks, Scott.
you bet. Ryan, I got you, man. Weather is not a factor. All right. So obviously we've talked about Lena, Forston, Fulton. Let's talk about Galena. Jay, you had mentioned it just a little bit ago. Obviously, spring season, they come in with a 5-1 record. High expectations coming in the year, especially with a lot of returners coming back. And then
21 seniors.
I think so.
It was 21.
quite a bit.
That's a lot.
But here they are making it back to the playoffs for the first time since 2015. They're 5-4. Not totally where we thought. I mean, that week 1 game with Fulton when they lost 14-13, we're like, okay, we can
We
understand
got
that.
two quality
Yeah.
teams like ready to battle it out here.
But then it was some point in the season, they took a loss here that I don't think was entirely expected. And I want to say it was the
Greg's on it.
I'm gonna look. Hold
was
on.
it
We'll
was it
figure
the
it out.
Forston game that we thought that they would be able to have a little bit better game? And
I know their game against
and
Dupac
forced
didn't
it.
go well.
Yeah,
And I had heard, they looked completely uninterested, and then you fast forward a week, and here we are. That was 2 weeks ago, wasn't it? Against
yeah,
Dupac?
yeah.
And then last night's performance against East Dubuque was like a completely different team.
Right.
Granted, it was East Dubuque, but
Well, East Dubuque was
East
very
Dubuque's
tough.
scrappy.
They're very scrappy. They've been scrappy all year. They were actually one of our teams to watch early on. They did suffer some key injuries, unfortunately, that kind of derailed their part of the season. But at the same token, they still put up some good battles with some teams.
So now,
Created a lot of fits.
Now it makes you wonder going into next week if they do battle against Force. I mean, those two teams generally put on a good show anyway. You wonder what you're going to get out of them next week, whether it's going to be hit or miss.
Galena's one head scratcher to me was 41-40 win over Eastland Pearl City.
Yes.
Now, hey, you win your clunkers, right? You win the games that you don't play great. They still came away with the win, but Eastland Pearl City obviously struggled this year. So that was the one that kind of caught me off guard. They really had to battle through that one. I think they have the skill positions. I mean, you got some of the names there, the names we've heard a lot. I think maybe a part of it was their line play. Maybe they didn't have as many experienced linemen, or they didn't have the size. I think maybe that was part of it for them.
Yeah, I mean, you take a look at, players to watch on Galena, obviously, were Ethan Hafel and Brady Schemahorn. You got Sam Eaton. On the line, you got Peyton LaGrain and Gabe Garcia. These guys are players that we have come to watch over the last 2-3 years, and they're very exciting as well. Backing up a little bit, obviously players to watch for Lena Winslow are Mari Roby, Brady Ilders, Brody Mann, Maddox Sargent, and Ethan Fye. And then you got Luke Benson, who was the quarterback of the state championship team as a sophomore in 2019. He's a senior this year, leading the helm there. With Forreston, one of the players that has definitely stepped forward here over the past couple weeks that has really helped Coach Janicki's team move forward is Devontae King Black. Obviously, they've gotten big yards out of Matthew Beltran on the year. Jacob Fiorello's been huge. The return of Noah Johnson, he missed a few games there early in the season. His return's been big. Line play by Mason Fox on both offense and defense. Casey DeVries on the defensive side of the ball. Austin Kochmeyer. And then, Caleb Sanders has done a lot of things for Forreston as well.
More than any team I can remember this year, every week that I'm covering Forreston, I feel like I have to read like 10 different names. Like most teams, it's like, all right, the same 2 or 3, I'm reading them every week. Man, Forreston, they just got like 10 running backs, and they're all producing. So
Right.
I don't know where they have time to get carries, but they're getting them.
And yeah, because you take a look at Fulton and, you're looking at Keegan Van Kampen and Jacob Jones.
Yep.
And it's the constant. Brock Mason, Patrick Lower. You got Braden Dykstra, who did fill in for a little bit. Did
Played
it
well.
exceptional.
Yep.
Exceptional. You got Cole Shipper, Joey Heisengay, and Braden Damoff as well on the offensive and defensive lines. They have really helped the Steamers out through the course of the year. As we shift to the South, looking at some of the teams there, obviously the number one favorite coming out of the South is Athens. Obviously, they're going to be led by Jakai and Shanklin. What I like about the Athens offense and what Coach Knox does is it's basically a carbon copy offense of what Forreston does. It's that double wing. They want to do the double dives, the backside counter. They'll do a little trap play here and there, and they'll pass a little bit out of it with Will Gordon as well. And I feel that obviously coming out of the Sangamo Conference, where we've seen Williamsville win the 3A state title, Maroa Forsyth is actually the team to talk about every year in Class 2A coming out of that.
Your guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Godfather.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Godfather, Josh Joseph himself.
Yep. Shout out to Steve.
But, obviously Joseph does a great job. But, Coach Knox has a lot of familiarity with what we've seen in past years with Carthage of old, with Jim Unruh and what the Blue Boys did and their domination in the mid to late 90s, early 2000s. And he's taken that to Athens, and they've really been able to get that offense going. Obviously, a lot of the teams down there in the Sangamo like to spread it out a little bit more, and they call Athens the physical team that they got to be prepared for. They've proven that. They only lost by a touchdown to Williamsville, their one loss on the year. Williamsville still a heavy favorite coming out of 3A South this year. And a lot of people are still very much tuned into what Williamsville's got going on. And they pulled out a big win over Maroa Forsyth just 2 weeks ago as well. So they put themselves in a very good position here in that South bracket. Obviously, some guys to look at there are Connor Brazil, Tommy Westervelt on the lines, and then you got Camden Austin as well. And so Jakai and Shanklin, it's got 1,300 yards rushing. So huge part of that offense. I saw Will Gordon had passed for like 500 yards. So while they're predominantly running, they're going to throw the ball around a little bit. A team that we're familiar with, Shane, Carrollton Hawks. Obviously, Coach Flowers has a good offense going there with the spread offense. You got Grant Pullman at quarterback. He's been able to sling the ball around a lot this year, coming back from surgery. Kyle Leonard at wide receiver. Obviously, he's a senior, younger brother of Cody Leonard, who we saw in the 2014 state championship game, had like 20-some tackles against Forreston, had an excellent career at Quincy University, becoming the all-time leading tackler there. So he's here. They got a good running back in Harley Angel, and then you add in the play of Gus Coonrod as well. Put in linemen Willie Gilmore, Ethan Harrelson, and Matt Byerman. And Carrollton's got the ingredients for success. Obviously, they're going to have the 2 seed. So for their sake, they stay away from CPC, who is their only loss back in week 1, where they had, I believe it was a 22-8 lead and blew it in the fourth quarter when CPC came back to win. But from there forward, they pretty much have dominated the teams put in front of them. Obviously, coming out of the WIVC, there was a lot of good teams in there this year with records that you weren't sure which way games could go. There was a lot of surprises there. But the two teams that came to the forefront that we expected, Camp Point Central and Carrollton.
So, I was gonna say those are the names we hear every year down in that part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The same.
And down there, they probably say the same thing about the teams we just rattled off on the north side. So
It's always interesting to see the AP rankings come out.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that's where and
It's-
Carrollton sits at that number one ranking as we get into the playoffs.
And it's like the more people you talk to, I mean, you can separate it too. The people who have gotten out of the WIBC and actually watch football throughout the state have a little different opinion than the people who are sold on just their own conference.
Right. Obviously, Coach Dixon at Camp Point Central also runs a very good double wing offense. We just saw them in 2018 against Forreston, where they had a tough road against them there with your boy Bodicher again. But obviously, Coach Dixon's done a great job. Probably one of the best coaching staffs in the WIVC. Runs that double wing offense very similar to Forreston. What I like about it is they do a lot of the same things. They'll do the double dive, they'll do the trap, but then they also add a little bit different hitches to it where they'll do a backside counter as well, where they lead with the double dive one way, hit you on the counter the opposite way because it gets that defense flowing, basically making it a misdirection type game and a guessing game for the defense, and they're very effective at it. Not a lot of size this year, but they do have a lot of speed, which we know he's been very
Speed clinic.
he's got the speed clinics, very much wants to play fast, which I do like about him. Players to watch, obviously, are Isaac Jennenbacher and Garrett Williams and Sterling Stotts. Those are the three running backs that they have. Nick Moore is there at quarterback, and then you got Caleb Post, Trent Orr, and Dakota Schaller are guys to watch as well. But definitely a team that we're keeping our eye on are the Panthers of Camp Point Central. Another one that was an early season favorite of mine, Jay, you're kind of familiar with this team, playing them a couple years ago, are the Cumberland Pirates. Obviously a little bit different team, but probably the same familiarity in offensive and defensive schemes there. They're coming in at 8-1, probably looking at the potential 4 seed. Pretty sure my buddy Jared Hoots and his Brown County Hornets are going to be headed there to play the Pirates in round 1. But what we have are, you're looking at guys like Logan Thilker, Easton Seifert, Ty Bradley, Galen Martinez, and a few others there. I think the Pirates can make a little bit of noise here in 1A South as well. Especially when you take a look at where they're going, they're going to match up with potentially the winner of Winchester West Central and Arcola, if that holds true to bracket projection. But I think they can do some things there. Tell us about your Marquette Crusaders, Greg.
Yeah, well, it's been interesting this year because they went independent. They're now, you talked about Orangeville and Martinsville a few years ago. Marquette's now the second smallest 11-man team besides Madison, way down south. So they ended up going independent, which has made for an interesting schedule. I had kind of hoped that it would make their schedule a little tougher, that they'd be a little more tested. I don't know that happened. I mean, they had some games against DMAC. They played Fisher today, who is down a little bit this year. They played Chicago Hope, who's a playoff team. But ultimately, I think that they played some teams on a down year, potentially some of those teams. But that being said, I mean, we kind of joked before we went on. Marquette's kind of one of those teams with Coach Yups that they're built for the postseason. They're a defensive-minded team. They play disciplined football. They're going to run the ball, control the clock, and they're not, for the most part, they're not going to let somebody run wild. They're going to keep teams in check. And I think this year they kind of fit that same kind of bill again. They can pass the ball a little bit. I know you got some stats.
Yeah,
I
I
think.
do. Quarterback threw for 1,000 yards.
Yeah, Alex Graham, I believe.
Yes. Running back Tom Durden had 1,000 yards rushing, 350 receiving, 23 total touchdowns.
Yeah.
And Durden's been a guy that's
And
been
they're-
up for Friday night
they're
drive
both
player of the
juniors.
week a couple
So
times, different times.
I think 2 running backs and a quarterback are all juniors. So
That's
they're
what's-
getting better as the year goes on, I'm sure. So that does bode well for the playoffs.
Yeah, I think just the people I talked to start the year, I think there was some unknown about what this team was going to be and how much success they'd have. And I think obviously sitting at 8-1, you got to be pleased with that. Their only loss was to DMAC, a playoff team, and it basically was one of those games where the last team with the ball is going to score and win. I mean, it became back and forth. But they're a young team. I think every skill position is coming back. They lose some linemen, but I think it's like 3 seniors maybe. So,
yeah.
I think that there's potential there. They're maybe a year away from being really good, but like I said, I think they're built for this time of year.
Well, and
If you return this many yards for the next year,
Yeah.
you're in decent shape.
Yeah.
You can return 3,000 yards.
And I
of
mean, we
offense.
can't be remiss to forget the 2015 season when nobody was counting Marquette into the mix. They go through. Ryan will tell us they were the NUIC killers. Ain't that right, Ryan?
They're well coached no matter what they have on the
Yep,
team.
absolutely.
So they're gonna. He's
That
battle tested.
that was when NUIC football came on my radar. Not just the conference, but this show in general, because I was watching every week to see what are they going to say, and
we were getting a lot of people from
Marquette
Marquette watching us.
We heard
And
the
Akron,
masses.
in Akron, we hung out with them in their little tailgate section. We had a lot of fun there.
yeah.
They know how to party. That's for
They
sure.
wanted- I think they even wanted Kyle to get in on the group pictures.
Yeah, they did. They did.
See, we got good people. They still
Oh.
like you no matter what you said.
Yeah,
So
see? Maybe everybody else can take note.
All right. A-Town, what do you know about the Tornadoes? You've talked a lot about them on your View from the West podcast. Tell us about them.
So I think coming into this year, I think we had a lot of expectation. Well, going in, they're new to the LTC, the Lincoln Trail Conference, both them and Knoxville. That being said, I think we talked a lot more about Knoxville because Knoxville had a lot of talent returning. They had a good spring. The year in 19, the last playoff run they made was a really good season for them. We knew a lot about them. I don't know that I didn't certainly know as much about A-Town coming in, and they've really proven some things in the Lincoln Trail Conference. They rolled through, their biggest win being Knoxville in week 8, and then they run into a really good, a really strong Monmouth United team who's been playing really well, won 5 in a row to cap off. So they lose last night at home, which is tough, but they managed to hold on to that number 1 seed. Easton Schischler is their quarterback. He's a dynamic athlete. He's kind of one of those. He can throw the ball, but he's a powerful runner. He's willing to really get in there and run between tackles and just get the yardage that needs to be done. Head coach Rick Quinn has been there for several years now. He's been there for a while. I think since it became A-Town, he had been the Abingdon head coach before that. So he's been around for a few years. Had some playoff success. Had a lot of success and then made it to the playoffs a few times. Had a quarterback that went to Western Illinois. So they had some success. I think looking at this year's team, I think they're 8-1. I don't think the LTC was as strong as it has been in years
That's what I was
past.
gonna wonder about.
So I think their biggest win is a great one over Knoxville. But losing last night, that stings a little bit because it was at home, when you're riding that 8-0 record. So that stings a little bit. But yeah, we'll see what they can do in the playoffs with that top seed.
Especially to a United team that was 5-3, projected to be 5-4, and then you go in there and you lay that egg, and they were going to be our only undefeated team in Class 1A, and United pulls it out.
We'll talk more about United in a minute, hopefully, because I think some things there have led to them playing better later in the season.
That's
So,
excellent.
yeah.
You always want that too at this time of the year,
Yep.
entering the playoffs. That's why, the old adage, records don't really matter once you get to week 10.
Yep.
So obviously the last team we're going to talk about in 1A, Aurora Christian. Got to keep an eye on the Eagles here as
Nothing says 1A football like Aurora, Illinois.
Yeah.
I'll tell you.
But you know what?
For what seems like 100 years in a row now.
Yeah. And every year it's like, who's going to draw them in the first round? But that's credit to them because they're in it. They're a good program.
They are a good program. Coach BB does a great job there. Obviously, he's lost a couple kids. I know that he lost their running back, Josh Dornick, to Batavia, so he's been tearing it up in 8A football this year for them. But they come back, obviously they're led by Trey Beebe. They got Cameron Colquitt, Cam Ajazi, Nathan Henry, Sam Delgado, and Max Garcia as some of their key players that I see coming forward. But it'll be interesting to see what AC can do in the playoffs. Ironically, it kind of looks like they may be polling Lena Winslow in round one, which
I don't know.
we know how that's been over the
I
last
don't know
couple
who's
of years.
more disappointed right now. The way Lena Winslow's been playing the last 3 weeks too. I mean, they're not exactly on a roll here.
I know, but you take a look at when they've matched. I mean, granted, we're talking about two superpower Lena Winslow teams before. They're not quite to that echelon anymore, but they're still a very disciplined, solid program. And Aurora Christian, obviously, we know that they rely on speed, spread, and want to get you on the quick routes. They're not always looking for that home run. They're looking for that quick slant, flag, post route, something that's going to hit you real fast, and then they're going to utilize that speed to get upfield. They do play a pretty physical style defensive scheme, which I do enjoy. Unfortunately, the last couple times when they did play Lena Winslow, they were a sophomore and junior dominated team, so they lacked a lot of experience, more youth in those games. This year, I think they got a lot more senior leadership, and they're definitely going to be a team to watch.
I mean, I make the joke about Aurora, Illinois, but when they come in with a 6-3 record, they've earned it. I mean, they're playing a solid schedule. I'm not going to joke about. I'm not going to poke fun at that. They play a tough schedule. They earn their record when they get here, and it's just it doesn't seem like a 1A program, but here they are.
Well, and then we talked about it. We saw it coming when they came into the 2018 season. What was it? They lost in the first round in 2017, and you had called it. You're like, well, here comes Aurora Christian next year, coming to 1A, and they've been there ever since because they got to the quarterfinals in 2018 before getting pounded by Lena Winslow, and then in 2019 they turn around and they faced Lena Winslow in the first round. So for them, they have not acquired the 3 wins to get the multiplier attributed back to their enrollment. So until that happens, we're going to continue to talk about them in 1A football. They're going to continue to be here, despite the fact that they play a 3A, 4A, 5A, 6A schedule. And obviously, teams worry about that, but at the same time, it is what it is. You are what you are, right, Jay?
They're still in the north in 1A. So that's
Yeah.
getting those 3 wins up here is never going to be easy.
Correct. So let's transition into Class 2A. Obviously, the team to talk about in Class 2A are the St. Teresa Bulldogs. I tell you what, led by Denham Cook, Christian Harper, Tyreek Cole, Joe Broomer at quarterback, Trey Spence, Bryson Dion, and Justice Chapman. I got the privilege to watch these guys back in week 5 when they came up here to play Durant Pectonka, and I tell you what, that was quite the excitement that they had. I thought that Dupec played very well with them, but clearly St. Teresa controlled that game from start to finish for the most part. Once they got that first score on the board to answer Dupec's initial touchdown, they got good size. They've been arguably the favorite coming out of 2A South. There was a lot of speculation on where IC would fit into that mix until they finally petitioned to play up in the Class 3A, our beloved small school teams, IC. Another one to talk about, right?
Yeah.
Still too low.
Yeah.
That one.
Yeah.
But Mark Ramsey's done a great job since he's arrived at St. Teresa. Obviously, his Hall of Fame credentials have led him to 5 state championships prior when he was at Central A&M. Also, back in the 90s and early 2000s. And even then, we got to see him down in 2016 at state when he got the Bulldogs back there for the first time since 1986 when they played Forreston. So he's done a lot for the program. He's definitely got them in the right direction, and they routinely become a team to talk about when we talk 2A football these days. What do you guys know about Modern Day?
Yeah, I do have some stuff on Modern Day. I got to pull them up here. Another team that played an independent schedule this year and obviously went through it perfect 9-0. Interesting. They've beaten 4 playoff teams. They beat Breeze Central, Mount Zion, Quincy Notre Dame, and DuQuoin, and they beat those 4 127-42.
Oh, wow.
So solid victories over, playoff teams, balanced attack from what I hear, and, independent schedule, but they were playing 3A, 4A. They were playing a little bit bigger schedule. So to come down and be a good seed in Class 2A, I think that can be beneficial for them.
Well, and it's kind of funny because we're projecting them to be at the 4 seed. They're ranked number 2, right behind St. Teresa in the Class 2A polls. And if you actually look at who they might be projected to play in those early rounds, they have an easy route to the quarterfinals. And who's going to be there waiting for them? St. Teresa, the team we just talked about.
Yep.
So we could potentially see a state championship game atmosphere like right there in the quarterfinals, unfortunately. Wish we could see that in the semifinals, but you gotta play where you're going. Tri-Valley is another team that we've talked about over the years. Obviously, they were the 2015 state champions. Back in 2013, they were runner-up to Galena Winslow when they had dropped down to Class 1A. They're undefeated, getting a lot of talk. But at the same time, we look at the Heart of Illinois Conference, not the same Heart of Illinois Conference we have come to see over the last few years, where they won 4 straight state titles from 2015, 16, 17, and 18. But I did talk to Coach Allen here when he was up here 2 weeks ago playing Forston. He feels that Tri-Valley is still the real deal. But it'll be interesting to see how they pan out. Obviously, they got Andrew Petrilli leading the charge for him, and Blake Reginald as well. And then you got the Fatima boys, Jake and Grant, on the lines, along with Logan Petrilli. So it'll be interesting to see what Tri-Valley can do there. Obviously, Coach Roop's done a lot of good things with the Vikings over the years. So it'll be interesting to see. Bismarck Henny, Biz Hen. What do you know about them, Greg?
9-0.
They're 9-0.
Dynamite dropping.
They're 9-0.
Back to you, Kyle.
Vermilion Valley Conference.
So obviously, talking to Coach Robertson down there a couple different times.
They're always
out
in
the
the mix
year.
down
They're
there.
always in the mix.
Yep.
And this year they show a lot of promise. Obviously, in the spring they had that close loss to Moreau Forsyth, which really helped spook or lift their confidence. They got Dawson Dodd returning, who is an all-area player for the Champaign News Gazette. Mason Hackman, Jace Waterman, Rhett Harper, and Jacob Bozardo, I believe. If I butchered that, I apologize. But, Bismarck Henning, they're playing very solid football. I think that they can definitely make some noise here into a South. They're going to be into a North.
Potentially going north. Yep.
Looks like they're going to go North. Where do we got them at?
Bismarck Henning is
Way
no,
down.
sorry. They
No,
are
they are in
down
the
south, way down at number 3. down
They
south.
are. So we were
I lied.
thinking that they were going to go North, but now it looks like they're going to come South. And they're going to face a potential team in North Mac.
There's a few teams down there that if this list we have in front of us comes out to be correct,
Yeah.
it's got a lot of pen marks in here and cross out, so we'll see how it ends up. But
Hey,
You did
it was
your
a
best,
wild,
Scott.
it was
You
a
did your
wild,
best,
it was a
buddy.
wild week 9. I'm
it's
sorry.
something I didn't even attempt, so I kudos for even trying.
Obviously, Pena is another team that we've been looking at. Another undefeated season, led by Max Lynch and Austin Henshin, along with Ace Armstrong and Hayden Stark. We tend to see those guys quite a bit in Class 2A, and they're looking to take on Ala in the first round. Obviously, they pulled off a big upset win that wasn't expected last night to get into the playoffs. They were 4-14, projected to be 4-5, got in at 5-4. But they will face the potential winner if they can get by Ala with potentially Moreau Forsyth and Westville. So that'll be interesting. Moving into 3A, obviously the team to talk about, IC Catholic. What do we not know about IC Catholic? Obviously, they won state in 2016, 2017, and then they got bumped up to 4A and won state still in 2018. In 2019, they returned to the 4A playoffs, where I believe they lost in the quarterfinals, and that's how they lost their multiplier because
Sounds
they did
about
not
fair.
they did not grab their 3 wins, and obviously with without 2020 playoff season, they didn't have the opportunity to get that playoff win. So, looking at what they have, Dennis Mandela leads the way, Malik Gray, Fernando Rodriguez, and Will Ryan. Obviously, another team to look out for are the Byron Tigers. Been to the state championship both in 2018 and 19. Arguably the favorites in both those games, but unfortunately came up with devastating losses to Monticello and Williamsville. They're back in the hunt, 9-0 once again. Coach Boyer down there does a hell of a job with the Tigers. They're led by Chandler Binkley, Isaiah Gooden, Tyler Reed, and Nick Brass. I think that the Tigers are definitely a team to talk about when you take a look at 3A, 4A schools. One of the conferences you talk about is the Big Northern, where they come out of. They've had some tough games. Genoa Kingston's been giving them a game where they won 7-3. Stillman Valley is another team that we are used to perennially talking about coming out of that conference as well.
Dixon's not a bad team in that.
Dixon,
4A team, but that's a bigger conference.
And we've seen success out of North Boone,
Yes.
and obviously years past, Rockford Lutheran with James Robinson when he was there, now with the Jacksonville Jaguars. But very tough conference. Love watching them play. Looks like they're going to have an easy draw here as the number 1 seed, making the second round. I think that they'll probably see Lyle in the second round if projections hold true. But, they got a very good plate to make a run ahead of them. Dupec. Obviously, we talked about Dupec. They're our NUIC champions, led by Hunter Hoffman at quarterback, who is quickly climbing all of the ranks with passing yards and passing touchdowns in the conference. One of the things that you alluded to earlier when we were talking about him is the run game. Trenton Taylor with over 1,000 yards rushing on the year. The improved line play with Drake Fortson, Caden Degner, Jake Anderson, and Breon Green has helped make that run game more explosive, which actually has reduced the numbers that Hoffman has been putting out this year, even though he's throwing at a 70% clip right now, which is remarkable. But they're doing a lot of good things, getting the run game going, which was definitely one of their downfalls in previous seasons. And with that going, we could potentially see Dupec make a pretty decent run. I think a lot of these teams that they are going to see in 3A, withstanding IC Catholic.
I was going to say that's the second
If it's a potential second round matchup, that's interesting. But to your point, yeah, I agree.
I think they match up well, and by the looks of it, they are probably going to be playing host to Piatone in the first round, and I can definitely see that coming to a good opportunity for Dupec to then play host to IC Catholic.
So they at home.
Yeah. Then that's a big thing. You got them at home. You're not playing on the turf in Elmhurst. You're playing on the grass in Pecatonica. Or if you really want to get bad, you're playing in Durand.
That might not be a bad idea.
Piatone lost 10-0 to Wilmington.
Yeah.
They have a real good game, and they're a control the ball, eat the clock type team.
They are.
Again,
Interesting. Yep.
try to not.
Yeah. What do you got on?
But that's all I got on them. But
Okay.
that would be, Dupec likes to score their points, obviously. So that a team that keeps the ball away.
Obviously, another team that we're familiar with covering, you especially, Princeton, led by Tegan Davis, Augie Christensen, and Logan Glancy. They've done a lot to get back to 8-1. Their one loss being to Kewanee, who we were talking about potentially dropping into the Class 3A playoffs, but it looks like they're going to jump up to Class 4A. With that said, the Tigers are right there. Once again, Coach Pearson making strong work with the Tigers. Where are we looking at them coming in at?
They're right here in the middle of the bracket, number 2 potentially. Projected number 2 against North Boone.
Yeah, and if you look at what their draw has, they could have
That looks
a
pretty
potential good draw to the quarterfinals there, where
IC Catholic would be looming as well, potentially, depending on that matchup with Dupec and IC. But, you never know what you got. What else do you have? Yeah, you got a lot of notes on a lot of our 3A teams.
I got just something on Princeton. They returned 6 starters on each side of the ball. Tegan Davis is
He's dynamic. He's an athlete. Yep.
it's just one of them, he drops back to pass and you think you get him and then he'll run it for 35 yards. It's they got good overall team speed. Princeton is good from their varsity to their 5th and 6th grade teams. They're just really got it all moving well. So they lost that game to Kewanee. I watched it on television. Kewanee I think Princeton was on their 4. They snapped one over their own head. Kewanee scored, then they got a quick interception and scored, and it kind of made it look a lot worse than it was. 21-21 at half. So again, I think Princeton's a real good team to look at in 3A.
What about down south? I see you got Benton and Mount Carmel in your notes.
I do. I did do some research on Benton and
let's
Mount
take a look
Carmel.
at those guys.
They got very good records. Are they both 8?
Benton's 9-0.
Benton's 9-0.
Oh, Carmel's 9-0.
Mount Carmel's 9-0.
Okay, both 9-0. Okay. Benton has a kid named Keegan Glover.
I've heard of his name. Yeah.
He's got over 4,000 yards passing in his career. I think he was all state last year. Rushed for over 500 yards. So that would be, what's he got? 33 touchdowns this year. 20 touchdowns, 2 interceptions.
I just read 2 interceptions compared to 20-some touchdowns.
And he throws it. He's got 100 completions. So who knows? I mean,
That's a good
forgot
ratio.
to write down what he their coach Justin Groves gave me a lot of information today, so I want to thank him for that. The wide receiver, obviously, if you got a good quarterback, the wide receiver has a school record for touchdowns in a season with 12. Scored a lot, allowed a lot of points. I'm not sure their schedule or who they play, or I'm not obviously familiar with teams 7 hours away from us.
Yeah, I was just going to say they were the champion of the Southern Illinois
Correct.
River to River Ohio division.
Yes.
But I think
that's down there.
I don't think their schedule was
All right.
as strong. Here we go.
Yeah, we got the releasings out. So
All right.
I obviously they've probably been up for a couple minutes now, and I'm just noticing. But here we are, and we're going to start with 8-man. Number 1 seed is Polo, as expected with the 9-0 record. They are going to play Scioto West Prairie.
All right.
At the 16th seed. For the next one, Milledgeville is the number 2 seed, playing host to Bushnell Prairie City. Number 3 seed are Coach Doyle's Orangeville Broncos as they play host to Hiawatha, as expected. Coming in with the 7th seed are the Aquinnah Bulldogs, and they will play host to Amboy, our other NUIC opponent. The rest of the field is number 8 is Milford Cisna Park, playing host to Pawnee. West Central is the number 4 seed, playing host to Decatur Lutheran. So 2 of the teams that we were talking about watching for from the southern part are going to square up in round 1. You have Flanagan Cornell Woodland playing St. Thomas More in the first round. FCW gets the 5 seed, St. Thomas More the 12 seed. And number 6 seed is Martinsville. They're still playing actually, but winning big over Galva at the moment, expected to go 7-2, and they are going to play host to South Beloit at 5-4. Moving into Class 1A, we're going to start in the north where the A-Town Tornadoes do get that number 1 seed, and they're going to play host to Anawan Weathersfield. The rest of the way down, number 3 is going to be Forreston. They are going to be playing host to Galena. Galena comes in with the 14 seed. Lena Winslow does get the 6 seed. They are playing host to AC, who has the 11 seed. Fulton gets the 7 seed, playing host to Chicago Raby. And the rest of it is going to be Iroquois West at the 8 seed, playing Monmouth United at the 9 seed. Rushville has the 4 seed, playing Ridgeview. St. Bede has the 5 seed, playing Chicago Hope. Marquette gets the 2 seed as expected, playing Princeville. And that rounds out Class 1A North. Class 1A South, Camp Point Central gets the expected 1 seed down there, playing host to Villa Grove. Nokomis has the 8 seed, playing host to Central A&M, a team we have not talked about, but we were high on them for most of the year. Number 4 is Cumberland, and they are going to play host to Brown County, as we alluded to earlier in the pod here. 5 seed is Arcola. They're going to play host to West Central. Number 2 seed is Carrollton playing host to Shelbyville. At the 7 seed is Greenfield Northwestern playing host to Salt Fork. 3 seed is going to be Athens hosting Macon Meridian. 6 seed is Cesar Valier playing host to KC Westfield.
Cesar Valier, close.
Valier. Up in the north, we call it Valier.
KZ Westfield.
there you go.
Casey. It's
There's
Casey.
a Z in there if you ask him.
That's
You hear
true.
one of them say it, it's
That's
a
true.
Z. KZ Westfield.
Casey. Anyway.
He refuses to do it.
In Class 2A, number 1 seed, Wilmington, plays host to Chicago Julian at the 16 seed. 8 seed is Mercer County, the one that you picked.
They're playing really well.
After starting 2 and 3, they finished 6
Yeah.
and 3. They're going to play
Hey,
host
they
to
get
Newman. They get Newman.
That's an interesting matchup.
We have
Yeah,
not talked
we need to
about
talk
Newman.
about Newman.
We will talk about Newman. Knoxville gets the 4 seed playing host to Bishop Mack, another team we have not talked about. We need to discuss
That is
Bishop
a-
Mack.
Yeah, that is a tough draw.
Erie Prophetstown plays host to Clifton Central. Tri-Valley gets the 2 seed playing host to Rock Ridge. Deer Creek Mackinac 7 seed playing host to Chicago North Lawndale at the 10. Farmington 3 seed hosts El Paso Gridley. 6 seed Tremont plays host to Moments. Down in the southern half of the bracket, St. Teresa gets the 1 seed playing host to Flora. Vandalia gets the 8 seed playing host to Chester. Mater Dei with the 4 seed playing host to Carmi White County. 5 seed is Johnston City playing host to Lawrenceville. I think you said you wanted to talk about Johnston City a little bit.
Yeah, yep.
2 seed Pana playing host to Arthur Lovington. 7 seed is Maroa Forsyth playing host to Westville. 3 seed is Bismarck Henning. They will get North Mac. And 6 seed is Nashville getting Menden Unity. And in Class 3A, there you go. Our Dupec Rivermen get the 3 seed. They will play host to Mendota, who gets the 14 seed at 5-4. Second round matchup would be with IC Catholic, who does grab that 6 seed spot playing host to Monmouth Roseville at 11. Overall number 1 seed are the Byron Tigers playing host to Chicago Catalyst Maria. Number 8 seed is Lyle playing host to Chicago Carver. 4 seed is Reed Custer playing host to Piatone. 5 seed is Chicago Clark playing host to Elmwood Brimfield. Princeton gets that 2 seed playing host to North Boone. Prairie Central comes in with the 7 seed playing host to Chicago King. Down in the southern half of the bracket, Tolono Unity gets the 1 seed playing host to Newton. Paxton Buckley Loda gets the 8 seed playing host to Eureka. Williamsville comes in at the 4 seed playing host to Beardstown. Fairfield gets the 5 seed playing host to Hoopston. Mount Carmel has the 2 seed, and they will host St. Joseph Ogden. 7 seed goes to Carlinville as they play host to DeCoin, another team that won out last night in an unexpected fashion to make their way into the show. They grabbed the 10 seed with that. The Benton Rangers, who you guys were just talking about, get the 3 seed playing Piazza Southwestern, and 6 seed goes to Monticello playing Greenville, another team that snuck into the playoffs with a win last night. So there's our playoff field for Class 8A, or well, the I8FA through and Class 1A through 3A. So
Who's gonna win?
who's going to win? What do you
Was there-
guys got?
Was there anything you had most of it projected pretty close, right? Anything that surprised you? I didn't see many changes.
Not a whole lot of surprises. No. I did not see many surprises. Obviously, there was a lot of changes that I had today due to a lot of games that happened between yesterday and today that kind of changed that projection around. I did have help from a few other people at time to time that would chime in here and there. Yes, I'm only running on 3 hours of sleep. I know people ask, how much do you sleep? I'm running on 3 hours right now. But it's been a lot of fun. Not a whole lot, though. It's really interesting. But let's go back to 8-man. Let's start there. Now that we got those brackets. Jay, let's bring back in your expertise. What do you?
I have no expertise.
Oh, yes, you do.
If I'm a guru, you're an expert. Trust me.
I think the cool part about it that you have all this. I think the cool part about it, there's only going to be one winner at the end of it. Carrie, drink.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to make sure,
No, you're
there's
good.
no, bad comments.
I think the cool part about it is across the state, across the state and everything, all these teams are together. They're doing crazy stuff, whether it be, what's that?
The bottom comment. What's it say? Don't worry about it.
Back on it. I think the part that you got to get by, we're looking 1 week, 2 week, third round or whatever. The cool part about it is all these teams are together. They're probably doing something crazy, whether it be color in their hair, they're with their team, they're doing all that stuff. I think that's what the cool part about it is.
Yep.
Waiting for these to come out, finding out where they're going. I think that was one of the cool part a couple of years ago. We were waiting on the EPC Forreston game. And then it found out that we got to play Chicago Hope. Well, a lot of our kids hadn't played at Hope,
Right.
or played in Chicago. You know what I mean? So you take that bus ride to Chicago, we go and we beat them. And that's what they remember. Whether you go first round, second round, third round, you'll remember a night like tonight. You'll remember your first round of the playoff week. You'll remember those things. And yeah, it'll suck when you lose in the first or second round. But, there are a lot of teams right now that are at home, that don't get a chance to have a night where they get together with their team and their coaches and do crazy stuff and talk about who they're playing. And right now the coaches are trying to find game film and, get ready for next week. And now it's, you lose, you're done, and that's what this is about, more so than you look at it a round or two away or this. And you don't, I forgot my train of thought here.
No, you're
But
good.
that's what this is about, rather than, well, they're going to get waxed in the first round or they're going to get waxed in the second round. I mean, it's about high school kids playing football and having fun doing it.
Right.
And I
Good
just
now.
about this 8-man. I thought it was neat during the season. So many of these teams got to play so many teams they would never play unless it was the playoffs. And now they're, it's kind of cool because there's not a lot of teams, so they have to go a little farther to play, which may stink.
Well, that's
you
what's fun about
don't
it.
want to drive 5 hours all the time.
Well, and that's what's fun about it. I
But
mean,
it is cool to see all these different teams get to play each other almost all season rather than also in the playoffs.
that was, that's one of the bad things I didn't like when they did quadrants.
Yes.
It was,
Absolutely.
It was a it was a conference tournament.
Well, Butters loves it because it guaranteed a semifinalist every
And it also does that.
Yeah.
But still.
Or we could just, do the right thing, go 1 through 32.
I'm
1 through 32.
Let's get there.
Let's talk
Let's
about
get
that.
Well, this is the best thing you have besides 1 through 32
Right,
is the
exactly.
1 through 16.
Yeah, for sure.
And the cool part about it is, like I said, when we travel to Chicago Hope, or the last thing you like to do is you just play a team and you've got to play them again next week, or you just played a team 2 weeks ago and you got to play them again in a tournament. It's making that trip, finding somebody that you never played before and playing them on with the travel.
What I really love when we're talking about this 8-man bracket and just kind of 8-man in general, as these NUIC teams adapted it this year and it's become more prominent in this part of the state, is that you look at Polo at 1 and Milledgeville at 2, Orangeville at 3, and then we still have other teams sprinkled in the bracket. Now, I'm not positive. They may have had a good shot in 11-man and they may have been in the playoff hunt, but they're certainly not going to be top seeds 1, 2, 3. And it levels the playing field a little bit where you're not concerned about 1 or 2 injuries as much as you were in years past in 11-man. So that makes this really exciting for these programs.
On the way here, they had the guy that runs 8-man doing it. And what I like about it, what he said was, well, they let the coaches pick, or however it was. They let the coaches pick. Do you want to do 1 through 16? Do you want to do? And they said, when you have more teams, what are you going to do? Well, I like that because if you ask any coach to find the true champion, you go 1 through whatever.
it is.
And we talk about travel and all that, but then you look at 8-man and heck, we went down, played St. Teresa in Champaign. You know, I mean, and you enjoy it. I mean, anybody will hop in a car and drive somewhere. you know,
You're 7 and 8A when you're
I miss
Chicago
those.
to St. Louis.
I mean, I missed that. I mean, I grew up in the 1 through 32 period as the Jew.
Yep.
And it was fun going to Alexis, going to Biggsville, going to
Really fun going to Carthage.
Yeah, going to Carthage, going to Tulane. Took you a while.
I think you named off 2 teams, and then he
It was not fun. It was not fun going to Carthage.
The bus ride there might have been fun. The one home, not so
It-
fun.
Yeah, well, it was a quiet ride there. It was
It was an even quieter one.
No, it was Halloween, so Lotto let us do what we wanted to do. He was good about that, but it was definitely a quiet ride on the way down. But
that's what you remember. That's
Yeah.
what's cool about it.
I loved it, honestly. The whole experience, even though we got thrashed in the first round, you know, one of the things I do remember is we were the closest to that Carthage team at halftime up until that point. And it was 16-8 at halftime. And what happened is, you know, we come out, we get the ball, we start driving, a fumble recovery happens, they return it for a touchdown, and all of a sudden we make another error on a punt return, and just like that, it splits. You know, those are the fun things, but it goes back to one of the things that we talked about. It's just those quick things can change a ball game in a hurry, and it is. Obviously, it had a lasting impact. I remember a lot of the details. I know the names of the guys I played against. I mean, one of them was Wyatt Green. He went to Western Illinois, had a pretty good career there. So it was cool. It was great to see. TJ Men was the kid that returned the fumble recovery. You know, it's just stuff like that. Just you rattle it. You don't forget it. I have definitely sparked past trauma. But the trips are cool. What I like about the 8-man too is the fact that, you know, IHSA uses playoff points, and then
They
tiebreakers
use
are head to
head-to-head.
head. They use head to head first, and
No,
and
which
that
makes-
puts more value
makes
on
sense.
winning. It puts more value on
Makes
winning.
sense.
Yeah, I love it. I say go to that. Go to that. It's awesome.
Yeah, I that brings me back to, it would have been 2017. We lost to Polo week 1. We go to the final game. We both finish 5-4. We get in, they don't. You know, that type of thing.
Right.
I mean, that's what that head-to-head should do. Worked out good for us.
I'm
not
old
for them.
enough to have to go 6-3,
Well,
or you might not even get in.
Well, that's the same with me and
That's-
Jay. Me and Jay were in that same era. You know,
Yeah.
A handful of 6-3 teams would get in 7-2. You get in 8-1.
Look at Lena Winslow. Rick
Yeah.
Aaron's only time not making the playoffs was in 1998 when they went 6-3. They didn't have enough points to get in. So, and that's his only time he hadn't made, and it was a winning season. So it's
And
pretty
this-
amazing.
And this year you had what, 1 4-5 team make it? Wasn't it?
Any?
But all the 5-4 teams, made
Every
it,
single-
correct?
every-
No.
So
Not,
was there a couple
no,
that were out?
I think there was 2 or 3.
There was a 3-way tie for
Okay.
the last spot, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so. It was either 2
I
or
think the 6-3 teams.
2 or
even
3
used to
got
be
left
split.
out.
I don't even know.
You only got a handful of.
Was it
6-3
only
teams? Yeah.
that didn't make it?
Yeah, it was always a small amount. It wasn't a large amount.
Okay, it's not like half.
But then you'll
the
have-
6-3
But then
teams
you'll have
didn't make
people
it.
go crazy because now they're talking about expanding it.
Yeah, they're talking about letting anybody in now.
Yeah, and
Well, that's the.
adding on an extra week or eliminating week 9 to have that, I think is stupid.
Yeah, I hate the idea of cutting out a week of the regular season. The regular season seems short enough as it is. And
There it goes.
Yeah.
You say that until you think your 3-7 team playing in a different conference would be 7-3 or 7-2.
Yeah.
All right, so back on pace here. 8-man.
Not to get off on that one.
I
but
know. It was good conversation though. Who do you guys like? Who do you guys like in this bracket? I mean, we talked about it a little bit. Our little bracketology that we had in front of us was almost accurate for the most part. But now that we see the actual bracket, what do you guys like? Who do you get going? I mean, we got some good first round matchups here. You know, West Central, Decatur Lutheran is the one that sticks out to me. Thanks, Care.
Good toss.
Another one too is
what did Aquin Amboy end during the season? Was that not a?
that's a good question. Did they play in this
Just
season?
curious if they even play. I guess I don't know if they actually played.
I don't remember. Do you, Jay?
Pull it up. Figure it out.
Yeah.
Greg's got us.
Stumped him.
Greg's
We're there.
Stumped him.
They did not play in the
Greg's
regular
internet
season.
is
They
way
didn't
better.
They did not
Okay.
play. So Amboy and Aquin did not play, despite being from the same
That's why I was.
Yeah, it's like Orangeville,
geographical area.
Orangeville and Polo did not. play.
Right, correct.
You know.
close.
Oh,
Right.
Gotcha. Okay. I didn't know you did. Well, that makes for some more interesting games, I guess. If that's.
All right. One of the things I want to say real quick, if you got questions, obviously it's open mic time. Ask your questions. We'll answer them. Shane's going to read the questions off as they come through. So if there are some, yeah, or Jay can, one of the two. You're on.
I know a couple guys that have Kyle's phone number. They can text him too.
Yeah.
There you go.
Or,
There are a couple guys that have my phone
Or
number.
if we move the monitor closer, I could possibly.
No, you can't do that.
Okay.
So, Carrie, you got questions?
What's your number?
I don't have a
Oh,
number.
okay.
32.
So you look at Polo and Milledgeville. They're the 1 and 2. They're the teams that Jay has called out, and I think we all kind of agree. And what's fascinating is they played, but it was week 1. It's a 2-point game. Came down to the end. So you look and say, like you said, no team really is hotter than what Milledgeville's been. Going through the rest of the season. But man, Polo's still there at 9-0. That's where it stands out to me.
Well, how they beat. It's in by the window.
Oh,
I
is
left it here.
Hey, Shy, you want to grab Jay's phone?
Um,
Snyder wants him to
I
check the phone.
I will say this. I was kind of taken back with how they took care of Akron last night. That was shocking to me in a big game. Normally, I would have thought it'd been closer, but I'm afraid what I'm going to get.
It's probably going back to the Godfather comment.
yeah, and I had nothing.
Anyway,
to,
back-
I had nothing to do with that, by the way.
But that's another good point. I mean, yeah, so they took care of Akron last night. But then, man, Akron's 3 losses are to arguably the best 3 teams in this bracket. So is there a chance that they can put it together? That they can be the team that plays the best this time of year and forget who beat them. They get a chance to get redemption against all these teams.
Right. One of the things that we talked about, I don't know. One of the things that we talked about was the return of Cade Guyton. I've seen him play. He is a difference maker. Jay said the same thing. Obviously, you got to look at, he hasn't played all year, but what has he done to get himself ready to play? And I honestly feel that he can be a difference maker on the offensive and defensive lines for the Bulldogs that may be able to help transcend them into better games against some of these teams if they match up as the playoffs roll on. He is a difference maker for them. He plays at a different level than what most of their team has.
And their kids know that, and having him on the field it
lifts that level.
It
Sure.
does. It
Yep, sure.
even if he's not at 100%, whatever his health may be, it may be something. If he's a senior leader, whatever, and they know he's on the field, that could help him mentally.
Right. All right, Carrie, you got questions?
Our first question comes from our buddy Big Pete of Deep Dish Football.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, Big Pete.
Got to shout out Big Pete. What team do you guys feel is the biggest dark horse in Class 1A?
Ooh.
The biggest dark horse in Class 1A. I think the biggest dark horse right now is probably Carrollton. I think that Carrollton has the potential to create havoc for Athens based off of the difference in their schemes. Carrollton likes to hit the that Athens is actually the team to watch down there, and it's without question. But I think that Carrollton has that opportunity to do those things. Another team that I think could be that dark horse is what team that we've talked about that hasn't come up in conversation, and that's Central A&M. I know that they just got ousted by CPC here in a pickup game due to lack of opponents, whether it be for COVID forfeitures or whatnot. But I know that Central A&M and Coach Weekly have had some injuries that they're battling back from. So I think if they can get fully healthy, they're still on my radar, even as a 9 seed, as a team to watch.
I'll throw a team.
Yeah, go ahead. Greg.
I'll throw a team out there, and it's coming from the northern half, which is going to be a gauntlet. It's going to be tough. But Peru St. Bede comes in at
That's
7.
what I was just going to say.
Peru St. Bede comes in at 7-2.
My Three Rivers guys.
That's right.
Well,
and they're playing.
Listen to our reasons.
They're playing a 2A,
I'm not
3A,
arguing.
Three Rivers schedule. So I just think that they have losses against Kiwani.
Princeton and Kiwani.
Yeah.
Kiwani's 4A.
So they have Tyreek
They're
Fortney.
3A, 4A. Yes.
Yep. Tyreek Fortney's a dynamic athlete for them. He's a playmaker. They have a good quarterback. I believe Brady's his
John
name.
Brady.
Yep.
Yep.
So I think that there's potential there. Now, I mean, I'll admit, I think that their game against Bureau Valley surprised me a little bit. I thought they'd put up more
They did
points.
have close games in a few games.
They
They
beat
beat
them.
Newman.
They beat Bureau Valley 13-7. I thought they'd put up more points. Against Spring Valley Hall, they only won 15-12, but they still won the games. They were playing close games. They got the job done. That's a team I might look at.
They
there.
were up on Princeton after I watched some of the Princeton St. Bede game. They were up after one quarter, 13-7.
Yep.
Which again, not a real big deal, but that's tough to do.
Another one I like, believe it or not, is Chicago Raby. And the reason why is because just a couple of years ago, they were in the 4A semifinals, and now they're here in Class 1A. They're going to have athletes on the field. Now, the one thing that does happen is discipline. You got to have discipline in order to win in the playoffs, and we've seen it too many times come to their demise. So if Chicago Raby can play disciplined football, we know that they're going to have the athletes to be able to spread the field out, and they could be a potential sleeper there. And they got Fulton there in the first round.
One more quick thing on St. Bede. They're in the half of the bracket without any NUIC team.
Right. So they got a good
I'm
shot
just saying,
at that semifinal.
so by
run.
the time when they get, let's say they get there and they only have to play one, and a 1-game scenario, that gives somebody a chance. And rather than have to go through the gauntlet, beat Galena, beat Forreston.
Having fun.
If I'm going to bring up St. Bede, I better bring up Marquette. Because if anybody's listening from Marquette, and I brought up Marquette's rival in St. Bede, and I didn't say Marquette, I'll say Marquette. I'll be the homer and bring them up.
There you
They're
go.
a team. They're a team built for this time of year. I'll say it. Now they're in the tough part of the bracket. They got Fulton, Forest, and Orlena Winslow somewhere down there in the mix if they win football games. But I'll just go out there and say it, and I'll get the eye rolls from everybody here.
Well, I think round 1 they're definitely there. Round 2, that's going to be definitely a game to watch to see if Marquette can have success or not, because that's going to be the critical path for them.
Coach Big Pete says Marquette is the best.
See, and Big Pete's been on him all year. So I've told you I'm a big fan of Coach Big Pete because he's been on him all year.
Yeah.
So
I know he's had
Big
him ranked number 2 right off.
I love it.
The rest
I
of
love
the
it.
year. So, all right, Carrie, second question.
All right, our friend Hunter Ashley.
Hunter
Hunter
is a cowboy model.
Yes.
If you did not know that, that's something that
That's good to know.
many people do not know.
Well, anyway, Jay, since you bring that up, I'm going to pose the question to you first.
Yes.
Who in 8-man, whose record does not reflect their strength?
Whose record does not reflect their strength in 8-man?
What do you have to say, St.
Thomas More.
It has to be them.
Yeah.
When they were a top team, Hunter. When they were a top team, and now they're 5-4.
Yeah.
And you really don't know why. But I think they would be a dark horse / a team you'd have to look out for. Thank you, Hunter.
What West Central's still sitting at 7-2,
They're 7-2 though.
but couldn't you say that? I mean, had things been healthy for them, they could have been a 9-0 team potentially.
Potentially, yeah.
Yes.
So I mean, technically, according to the
7-2,
question,
5-4.
yeah, I get it. I get what you're saying.
Division 1 running back.
Yes.
Yeah.
You like that. But yeah, no, I mean, honestly, I think West Central, if they're healthy, do they really lose to Amboy? And, I saw them, they matched up, even with what they had on the field that day, they matched up really well with Aquin. I mean, I know the game didn't go that way, but you put those starters in there, you gain that athleticism, and that becomes a lot more clear. And then that's what Jay had talked about before, too. You got to have that component. Carrie, you got any more?
I do. Midnight Escape 2009 asks what your guys' thoughts are on Williamsville and their chances to repeat from 2019.
Ooh, Class 3A Williamsville.
3A South, what we all know the most about.
Yeah.
Don't
Well,
ask Kyle's opinion of 3A South
yeah.
over years past.
Yeah. Well, honestly, coming out of 3A South, even though they are the 4 seed, and you got teams like Tolono Unity in there at 9-0, you got Mount Carmel in there at 9-0, Benton in there at 9-0, I would still put my money on the Bullets being the team to reach DeKalb come November 6th or whatever it is.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, close.
Yeah. Good enough.
Day after Thanksgiving, right?
I would call them I'll go home and fill out my entire bracket. I'll spend the rest of the night doing that. But I would say, at first glance, Milledgeville to me would be the favorite until someone beats them.
Milledgeville's in 3A now? You mean Williamsville?
Williamsville.
That would
Too
be
many
jumping.
Bills.
We got a lot
But
of
I would see them to be the favorite. Mount Carmel, again, they're just teams we're not familiar with.
I agree with that, but what we've seen historically
Sure.
would lead me to believe Williamsville's the team to beat. As far as repeating,
Yeah,
the question,
yeah.
as far as repeating, I
As
don't.
champions?
Yeah,
No,
I
I
don't
would-
think that's going to happen.
No. Was there a team in the north that we haven't talked about?
IC Catholic?
No.
Is that where you're going?
Yeah.
Obviously, IC Catholic.
But without
is-
IC Catholic, I still would not pick
No.
them to win.
Wouldn't either.
I just think there's some really tough teams again outside of IC Catholic. I think.
Well,
they're
in your
up here.
argument, so here's your argument. They won a 7-point game over Moreau Forsyth, who is in Class 2A. They won a 7-point game over Athens, who is in Class 1A. So while I personally don't feel that has much to do with it, I know that you two will spout off that it has a lot to do with it. And if you have a 3A team that can routinely play with a 1A, 2A team, these other 3A teams that typically play 3A, 4A teams are probably going to be a little bit tougher.
I still think it depends on which league you're talking about.
I
mean, there's take the NUIC. They're as strong as, let's say, a 2A, 3A conference somewhere else.
You're admitting that on camera. All right.
When did I ever not? I don't know if that's.
I'm just kidding.
No, but it's just the same. I mean, that's always the argument. There's areas all over the state of Illinois with varying successful football programs.
Right.
And that's just the way it is. It's the same in basketball, same in baseball.
I agree. with
It
you.
just,
Jay, you got thoughts. I can see it.
I don't got anything.
You don't? Wow.
I had one question that came to me though.
Sure. Let's go.
And that was, are you still going to be Changang next year?
Oh, man.
Steve Steiner
On the
wants to know.
spot.
Steve wants to know, are you still coming back next year?
oh, absolutely.
All right.
I'm 100% on board, coach. I'm in.
All right. Awesome.
So getting back to it, was talking about 3A,
Who's
IC Catholic. So talking or listening to Steve Susi and Kyle Neighbors did a live show Thursday night. And I listened to it for a little while and chimed in asking about IC Catholic being in the 3A bracket. And both of them were quick to say that they thought that, yes, IC Catholic is a very battle-tested team coming from a big conference, but that they're gettable, that it's maybe not what we've seen in years past, where they're going to roll through. They did not
I
anticipate
honestly
it.
have no idea what
What's their
I
enrollment?
haven't watched them, haven't paid attention.
I see. 323. So
So-
technically, they're a 2A.
Yeah, I mean, really,
Yeah.
they should be complaining.
Yeah.
I mean, by enrollment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because they're playing
Right.
up.
So, but I think naturally people see that name and think, oh man, they're going to roll through it, no problem. Because they've done that before. But I think you get one of these good
I
teams.
was telling him that though.
Yeah, they lost.
They lost.
to
Yeah.
St. Francis.
And right, St.
A
Francis
team they
lost
usually
to,
lose to. Or beat.
I was looking at it. this
BMAC?
morning.
Do they lose to BMAC?
They lost Bishop Mac. They probably.
But then
I mean,
I
it was
see beat
it
Bishop
was a
Mac, correct?
conglomeration of
Didn't
teams
they-
that beat each other that probably
Yes,
should have
yes.
beat each other.
Yes.
So I think, I don't know if it'll be Williamsfield,
Yeah.
it'll be the team to do it, but I think that there's a chance. This is not a drawn, it's not drawn in pen already.
Right.
Well, and the thing
You
is,
gotta
with
play.
IC,
Still
even
gotta
if
play.
they're not at the level they were, I mean,
No, exactly.
They're still-
We're not talking about 2016, 17, and 18
Right.
IC.
Yeah.
They don't have those.
Those
kids
guys
anymore.
graduated.
And I did watch a clip of them, albeit it was from the spring game. I did watch a clip. I don't know how many of those guys are returning this year, but they reminded me a lot of what we saw earlier this year with St. Teresa. They got some good size up front. Nothing that's like 350 type size like we saw on that 2016 team that rolled through everybody. I mean, it's not like they got Division I recruits all over the field like they did then. But
That game was against BMAC, wasn't it?
no, that
Or
was
was
the
One of
20,
them. One of them was.
17?
One of them
18,
was.
17 or 18.
I don't
And
remember.
4A?
One of them was.
Yeah, 4A. It was the 4A game, 2018.
When they rolled in with, when we watched them roll in town.
But
Yes,
see,
yeah.
that's not that far. Away.
It's not far away.
That's why our brains
You know-
still go up here when you hear IC. It's
Well,
just because
You got to think.
in the
Coach,
last 5 years they've won.
Coach Bowen's there. He's had experiences in the NFL as well, and he still does a lot of things there that are going to be conducive to keeping that program going forward. Obviously, you add in the ability to pull in from 100 and whatever thousand people,
Yeah.
and the fact that you no longer have an Addison Driscoll right down the road, you get a lot of those kids to come in that want to play at the opportunity of Division I scholarships. And why not? You're at a program that has great facilities.
Yeah.
It's local to the area that they're pulling to, and you've got a coaching staff that has had a lot of success at other levels to move you forward. So, it's one of those things that you got to put that out on the table. But to your statement, I don't think that IC Catholic is nowhere near the level that we've seen in previous years.
Which makes things more fun. That makes things exciting.
So Monmouth Roseville might get them.
I'm not going that far.
I was hoping that they got a different draw, obviously, because being in our conference, we do have some 2A teams. We do have one 1A team. I wanted to see how we're a closed conference. We just play crossovers with each other. I wanted to see how all our 3A teams were able to do against quote unquote regular 3A teams and not IC Catholic right off the bat.
I mean, I liked what I saw from Monmouth Roseville this year. I saw them play Erie Prophetstown, and they came up short, which was for the conference title essentially. They got a really good quarterback, Silas Braun. He's a sophomore or junior, but man, he's a leader.
Yep.
Like you could just see it on the field.
Yep.
He's athletic. He
Good
can make the
size
plays.
kid, tall kid.
So, I mean, I think they have pieces there. And Derek Chandler's another go-to back for them that can make plays. I mean, they're a playoff team for a reason. They're a good football team.
Yep.
This is a tough task, and you're going on the road to IC Catholic, which is it's a tough draw. It is. I mean, no matter what we say about how they might be gettable this year, it's still a really tough draw.
You still have to be a really top team.
So
to probably
see what they can do.
knock them
They
out.
drop off a lot. I mean, they're still
Yep.
So I don't know. I hope for the best for them. I show up and compete.
And
see what happens.
Mendota, I do know coming up against Dupac here.
Yeah, that was a change.
They
that
are
was a change. It was
very large up front.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Very large up front, like 360 3 times up front. Like they're that big. So
that'll be
again,
impressive.
they didn't beat anybody. They upset anybody in the conference. But again, I don't think they're a bad team. They played. Obviously, they would have lost to Newman, and that's how they get their 4 losses.
Sure.
Princeton, Kewanee.
Right.
So
So let's go back to 8-man real quick. Jay, I'm going to leave you out because obviously you're going to have a partial decision, and I respect that.
he's the only one that knows about 8-man.
You're taking the guy out that knows.
Yeah, I don't have any idea.
Well, what my question is I was going to ask, who do you guys have winning state 8-man?
I'll take Milledgeville.
I would have to say that right now, Milledgeville is my favorite twin state.
Oh man, I thought I was gonna say Milledgeville and be but
We all can. Sounds good. Great.
Now here, what is there any chance anyone outside of the NUIC teams winning state?
That'd be the bigger question. And
Yeah.
I mean, did we all agree on Milledgeville? Did we?
I mean,
Maybe
I
you
don't know.
have
I mean,
to
I-
answer
Jay,
the
you okay
question.
with that?
Shane's
I'm
clueless.
not involved in this.
Shane's clueless to the 8.
And I'm just
it's
going,
so. I mean, between
like I said,
Polo-
I don't have any knowledge of most of these. I know just from being semi-close geographically.
I would say that team
I hear a
right
little
there
bit.
is the one
Yep.
team that we have
that's
to
the
look at.
that's the yeah West Central is
West
the is the team that I think stands out to me as
Oh, Kirby.
yeah. And Kirby's been around at a lot of different levels and has coached a lot of football. So
Yep.
no, getting back to it, I think my head went Milledgeville first, but I think on any given weekend, Polo, Milledgeville, or Orangeville, that I just they're so close to me. It's hard for me to separate, when I look at those three.
I'll give you 2, Polo and Milledgeville.
All right, there you go. All right.
Sorry, Jay.
All right, there you go.
I love Gunner, but man.
Yep.
But all right, 1A. So big games in 1A. Man, I think Marquette Princeville is a good round 1 matchup. Obviously, we've talked about how the Lincoln Trail is somewhat down this year. Marquette playing an independent schedule that has really not been a strong schedule. Even though it's a 2-15 seed, I think that's a big matchup where we could potentially see a 15 seed win.
But I think it's a good draw for Marquette. Princeville doesn't score a lot of points. They don't give up a lot of points either. They played a lot of low-scoring games, but I don't think that affects Marquette. I think that Marquette will thrive in that style of game, and I think that this year, with the ability to pass the ball a little bit, I think Marquette can get that one.
I would
Marquette
take
first round
Marquette in
matchup.
that game.
Carrie, you got a question?
Yeah, Hunter, on the note of 1A. He
Hunter.
wants to know if with Galena having a tough past couple of weeks, are they candidates for an early exit?
Well, I think anybody's always candidates for an early exit, but withstanding the close game with DePaul, the loss to Dupec, and now what we know as the loss to Forston, I still feel, based off of inside information that I know of or surrounding a certain program, that Lena Winslow to me is still the team to beat in Class 1A. And it's not because I'm from the NUIC. I've seen them play enough. I've seen Forston play enough. I believe what we saw last night was a combination of one team geared up, ready to go for a rivalry game, another team possibly overlooking that team. And I think that there was some injuries that could have played a part as far as being a little banged up and not at 100%. But at the same token, we set it back, and I knew I was going to bring this up. I set it back in the preseason on your podcast. I brought it up that Forston was a team that nobody is talking about, and they're quietly sitting there ready to make a run, and they proved that last night.
Yeah, I think if anything, I think Lena's just now angry. I think they're just motivated. And I think regardless of win or loss in the last couple of weeks, I think that they have that champions mentality. These players are ready for this stage. This is what they've been, working for, like everybody has. But this team, especially this program, this is the time of year for them, and I think that they still have a lot of guys from that state championship run in 19. They've seen it, they've been there, and now maybe they got that little extra chip on their shoulder because they fell to 7-2.
And I respect that, and I don't mean to bat the hog here, but I'd go the opposite way with that. Honestly, I think you got Fulton, Forrester, and Lena Winslow who've all proven this is what they are. Any given week, it might be it. I don't know.
No, that's a fair assessment.
Because
How
not
did the
to cut you off,
Fulton Forston
because
game
the way
play out? I don't remember. Was it?
It was a defensive battle.
Was it back and forth the whole game? I know
But
it ended up
Forrest-
maybe 2 touchdowns to Fulton.
It was 24. It was 24-14 for Fulton.
Okay, 10.
But Fulton was able to mix run and pass, and they did exactly
Right.
what Dupec did to Forston. They shut down the outside edge and didn't allow them to get anywhere. And as far as passing game goes, Forston unfortunately just does not have a pass game this year. At least not a consistent one. It's not saying that they can't throw the ball. They can. Logan Dyson has a good arm. He can make the throws. It's just that the accuracy of those throws aren't always there. And
If you're gonna give all those guys carries, you can't spend that much time throwing the
You
ball.
can't pass very often.
That's what they want to do. So
they're a running
they
offense.
do it well. Yes, they do.
They're going to pound you 52 times a game.
But the
on
problem
the
is
ground.
when you get down 2 scores.
Yeah, what do you do? Yeah.
Then again, that's what.
You
Well,
get in desperation mode.
They just were.
Yeah.
That's
correct.
Yeah.
But like you said,
And
how
they kept
often
running
you going
the
to
ball.
have a 99-yard drive? I mean, it's just one of them things.
But
so.
they did it. They did it against arguably what I had talked about, the number 1 team to look out. I mean, you take a look at the last 5 years for Class 1A football, and Lena Winslow now has 4 losses in 1A competition, and all 4 of those losses are to Forreston.
That's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
I mean, that's a rivalry right there. I mean, you just.
Oh, yeah.
But to answer your question, Hunter, do they have a chance? One of the things that we have seen with Lena Winslow is their pass defense, and we've talked about it in years past. And now there's a lot of times where they've proven us wrong too, and the playoffs become a different animal. But with their play against DePaul and Dupec, both passing teams, they did not have good success. Granted, Dupec actually beat Lena Winslow with the run game, not the pass game. However, drawing Aurora Christian in the first round that is going to do exactly everything that Lena's not built for could create potential problems in that first round matchup that could potentially lead to an early exit.
Yeah, I think it's probably not a bad draw. I don't know if you could say it's a bad draw, but yeah, I mean, they're going up against a spread team, a team that, can throw the ball all over the place. So
Right.
it makes an interesting matchup for sure.
Oh. What you got, Jay?
I just think we've seen it before and we've heard the same thing, and Lena will come in.
Yeah.
And I think they'll take care of Aurora Christian.
Yeah.
We said it back when they had the kid that went to NIU,
Hampton.
Hampton.
Ethan Hampton.
And we've seen what Lena did to him there. And then it was just a couple years ago, they did it again. And now we're sitting here thinking Lena's going to be down and Aurora's coming to town. I don't think it'll be a close game.
Yeah. I like the fact that this game is in Lena
Yeah.
because you're on grass and you're not on Aurora's turf.
Well, again, you said that, or it was said that a
So
couple
the
years
weather
ago.
doesn't matter,
And
but
I was-
the
And it was in the
I'd
field.
go with your point at this point. I mean, you
Grass
rather,
can slow down the speed
I
a
think
little
it-
bit, though.
it is in Aurora Christian's favor though that it's a week or it's your first week of the playoffs rather than 3 weeks from now.
Sure.
It's clearly going to.
Yep.
The weather is
Yeah,
going
better
to be
day.
nicer.
Yep.
Yeah.
For sure, especially looking at how cold it's starting to get. We know
Right.
that snow's going to be coming in the forecast and wreak havoc, which is always fun. We've seen that the past couple of years.
For who?
I don't know. Yeah.
Where is this going? I'm just saying we've seen the snow
It's
become
fun
an
for the
issue.
fans. I
I love
I
snow
don't
games.
mind watching a game in the snow.
I love
That's-
them.
Then I got to keep a camera dry and it just gets.
We don't have to do that.
I know.
I
Nobody
just-
else cares. So.
Okay, so looking at it, obviously south side, and I've said it already, Athens to me just stands out as the south side.
Yep.
Sure bet to get there. But here's the problem. Despite what we thought, both in 2018 and 19, they got to the semifinals. No, 2017 and 19, they got to the semifinals and they lost against teams that they did play against.
Who was it?
They lost to Tuscola in 2017
Oh,
and they
okay.
lost to Cam in 2019.
That's right, A&M. Yep.
So
God, those teams were good. I mean,
they were.
I don't know if there's another team the caliber of those. We know those teams were good when the playoffs started,
Right.
but I don't see anyone.
Well, I mean, 2017, me and Shane had it nailed. We
Right.
had the 4 teams
Right.
going to the
Right.
semifinals, and we
It's kind of a given.
that's when the booklet came out, when he put the stamp on it.
People got pissed.
Because
I
we
just-
said, can we
I
just
was
get to
probably
the
one of them.
semifinals?
Yep.
We know it's going to be Forreston. We know it's going to be Lena Winslow. We know it's going to be Tuscola. We know it's going to be Athens.
Yep.
We was just waiting to get there. And when we got there, it was great. Those 2 weeks were absolutely awesome for Class 1A football. But in 2019, you say the same thing. We knew Central A&M and we knew Athens were going to be the 2 teams to watch, and they made that come to fruition. And then Central A&M got to state, but obviously they ran in the railroad tracks of that engine coming down in Lena Winslow. But everybody did. So with that, yeah, I would agree. Some of these teams just aren't to the same caliber as Athens. On the north side, I agree with Shane. You do have a lot of teams that can make some noise here, as proven. I agree with Jay, though. Lena Winslow still that team I expect to see at Husky Stadium on Friday.
I think it's figured out in round 2. I think it's again that Forest and Lena game.
Yeah, I agree. That and it's proven that over the last
But if
times.
Forreston beats Lena, then they can play Fulton again.
Well, and I wouldn't discount Galena just yet either. I mean, stranger things have happened.
Yeah,
I mean, we saw that Galena Stockton matchup a few years ago that went absolutely sideways in a heartbeat.
but was it
And-
sideways?
and-
Was it sideways because of the game or the pre-events?
I was going to leave that alone.
It might have been sideways the night before.
Yeah. But
It's funny.
no,
you
you're
guys
right.
can say it and nobody cares. I say it and I'm the bad one.
Well, you're the villain.
Yeah, that's
Take
fine.
your hate shield down.
Yeah.
That would be the bracket that'd be this one, the other 3 rounds of 8 here. I think Camp Point, Athens.
I was
and
going to say
would
Camp
take
Point
St.
Central should
Bede
be
in the
mentioned in
north,
here too.
the
Yeah.
upper north, but then that's the
Yeah, because with Carrollton in the 2 seed and Athens at the 3, you're really kind of just looking forward to that quarterfinal matchup.
yep.
And then CPC's just sitting all by themselves up
Yep,
there.
that's
The
what.
only team that could possibly give them some gruff would be Cumberland. But now that we're seeing that season play on a little bit more, I'm not so sure Cumberland's up to what we saw earlier in
Right.
the season either. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, Central A&M's still there. CPC just waxed them 44-14. So there's that opportunity because they have that known about what to expect coming back too. What you got?
He abbreviated KZ Westfield KZ. I'm just telling you. I'm still telling you. And he's just telling me that they're not your typical 6-3 team. So that's a message from a long ways away.
Yep, there you
But,
go. So Casey Westfield is a team to watch. Obviously, we've seen them
But
pop
that
up
would
in the
be-
state rankings too
It
earlier in the
would
year.
be second round against Athens, and that would be where they'd have to.
So before we move on to 2A, real quick, we talked about Monmouth United earlier. They knocked off A-Town in week 9. Now, what's interesting is they're 6-3 at the 9 seed. If they win, they potentially have A-Town again in the second round. They had their quarterback was out for the first, I think, like 4 or 5 weeks of the season. Aiden Parkins is back. He played really well last night. They have another real tough running back, Cormac Flynn. So Monmouth United was at one point 1-3, and they're now sitting at 6-3. So they've put together a really good stretch of football, and they're healthy now, which they weren't before. So I don't know if this is a team that, we're talking deep into the playoffs, but they are certainly playing well at the right time.
So where did we have Shelbyville? Were they going 1A?
Yep, 15.
So that's
in
another
South.
that's another team we need to take a look at too. Obviously they come out of the Central Illinois Conference where you got St. Teresa sitting, Tuscola sitting, Cam sitting.
Well, they're playing Carrollton, so
They are. And could they provide a mismatch for Carrollton is one of those things that we need to look at. I mean, when you take a look at their schedule, they're 5-4. They did lose a big one to Cumberland in the first week. And then they lost to Macon Meridian, which was, to me, a bad loss. They got beat by St. Teresa 42-6. And then they had
it's not bad.
no, it's not.
No, I mean,
I suppose.
They didn't get clocked.
no, but
Well, maybe
honestly,
they did.
that's
Maybe
it was
they
probably
did.
42
It's
to
probably
nothing.
42-0 they scored.
It's never fun when it's 42-6.
no, but it's less fun when it's 60-0.
Or 64.
Yeah,
But one of the things that concerns me is that loss to Meridian. To me, I don't think Meridian, that they match up fairly well, but you take a look at, some of the things that the Rams have
And, they probably have a few playmakers on their team. I don't know a whole lot about them because they really haven't been paying much attention to them. But we've talked about the CIC. They've put 3 teams in the state finals in each of the last 4 years, with St. Teresa in 16, Tuscola in 17, and Cam in 19. So obviously they've proven that they are another conference to watch when it comes to playoff time. And the fact that they are the highest enrolled 1A team now, because they drop into 1A at 319 enrollment, what can they do that is going to provide fits, especially playing a team like Carrollton that, they've had some blowout games, but they've struggled at times against some mediocre or less than mediocre teams for at least the first half of a game. Can that be a game where Shelbyville takes advantage of that? Is basically what can happen there. And I think that it's a good discussion topic. But, I do think that Carrollton still wins that game. I do feel that Carrollton has a good shot to meet Athens in the quarterfinals. Honestly, I wasn't very high on Carrollton. I still really am not. I just feel that in that South bracket that they have the opportunity to go pretty far. What do you guys think?
Moving to 2A. Is that where we're going next?
Let's go 2A.
Okay.
So, obviously, we've had a lot of talk with St. Teresa. What are some teams that we haven't talked about? I.e. Bishop McNamara getting a big win over Riverside Brookfield last night. I don't have much information on Bishop Mac. Obviously, I kind of passed over them, and I don't know why. That was stupid of me. And
I don't think any of them are watching.
no. Well, they might be. There's a couple from Bishop Mac that follow us on Twitter, so I wouldn't be surprised if a couple are lingering. But anyway, what do you guys know about Bishop Mac?
Well, I mean, obviously, win last night, 54-14 over Riverside Brookfield, a 5-4 team with enrollment over 1,600. So, I mean, they played a big schedule, and they managed to get 2 5 wins, and they managed to get in here. And it's a team we've seen in years past that, when they get into the bracket, they can cause fits. So I don't know much about, their individual talent, but, record-wise, it's a team that
I
makes you nervous.
know our buddy Matt Serdich was pretty high on Bishop Mac and having some
He's in that
potential,
area.
some potential D1 recruits on the team. How that transpired with their schedule, I mean, they did have a pretty tough schedule, as you just stated. I was talking to a guy from Bishop Mac just last week. He didn't think that they were going to beat Riverside Brookfield, and they beat the snot out of them. So, I mean,
That was 34-0 at half, I think.
Yeah. So So, the thing that stuck out to me about them was a couple of years ago when we watched them play IC. They didn't really have that many numbers, but the kids that they did have more than made up for it.
I think, they played Newman several years back.
Yeah.
That was the
and
game I was at.
The
Yeah.
same thing. They didn't get off the bus with a ton of
20,
kids, but
20,
boy, did they
25
have the
kids.
right kids.
Yeah.
That was Ward.
Mhm.
Jonathan Ward, I think, was the back on that team.
Yeah, that was almost what I was just referencing. Like that time of year, like they show up and they keep playing a good program.
Eastern Michigan.
So I do have a question. Joe Omo from 23 News did ask if the 8-man bracket officially came out, and they did post it with an asterisk around Martinsville's name because Martinsville was still in action against Galva. But they did have Martinsville as an asterisk 7-2 winner. They did post that on their website at i8fa.org as the official bracket release. So that answers that question. Next question I have is this comes from Pectonica. Shane, they want to know if you are the notorious Twitter Dupec super fan. Next. That is a no. Okay. Serious question, though. How does Dupec stack up with Mendota? There's not a lot of stats to show us what Mendota has, and between the two of you guys got quite a
There's
bit
not
of
a lot of
information.
stats I could find either. I do have like I said, they're big. You watch them on I watched a couple of the games on the networks, yes, that had the channel. And then I finally did get their roster and verified that, holy moly, they're that big. They had a kid, I think he was 350. He'd pull on a lot of plays, just a little inside pull. And they did have a couple athletes in the backfield. I don't know if you can speak to that, Greg, or
Uzi Angelo is their running back. He's been one of their big playmakers. Ted Landgraf is a quarterback.
Landgraf.
Yes. Can throw and run. They're fairly balanced. What's that?
I said, there you go.
they run out
Balance.
of the shotgun.
Yeah,
The game
and
stuff
they
that I watched.
and I think it was the game against Spring Valley Hall. They were passing early and they threw an interception, led to a pick six. They struggled in passing and they went right to the ground game and really controlled the game and won it from there. So I think they could do both. They could do both effectively when they need to. But you saw them run into Kiwani, who's a 3A, 4A border team, and they just couldn't get anything
They didn't
going.
play well
And
against.
just could not get anything going. Yeah.
No, those teams. Newman just played them, I think, Friday, and kind of seemed to have their way with them a little bit.
So Newman would have played them in week 8.
Week 8, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right.
So they struggled against some of the playoff teams, the big playoff teams that we've talked about. And this is a team that has come a long way. I mean, this is a Mendota program that struggled for a long time.
Well, they didn't win more than one game, I think, since 2014.
Yeah.
And then until this spring.
So this is their first year in the Three Rivers. To get to this
third
point,
year coach, maybe.
I believe so.
Something like that.
Yep.
So I think he's maybe getting it turned in the right direction.
I think it's a big accomplishment for them to get here.
Absolutely.
It's a tough matchup. It's a tough draw with Dupec because on the flip side, whereas Mendota's a rising program getting to the playoffs, I think Dupec has kind of turned that corner and they're ready to be, they're ready to make that run. So they're coming at it from different perspectives. And I think that favors Dupec in this one.
I did jot down some linemen: 6'1", 350, 5'10", 260, 6'5", 380, 6 foot 255.
One of those linemen, they're big linemen, scored a touchdown earlier this year.
Oh,
they
no
put him
kidding.
in like a almost like a refrigerator Perry type.
But that's the first thing you see when you see them on film. Is them guys are big. They're just very big up front. Obviously, they're not.
And this is
Very fast up
This is
front.
Mendota's first year coming to the track. Right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
Which
Would
they
you-
came from a bigger conference, which may explain the one win each year. They,
It may.
in our conference, maybe they wouldn't win 5 games in that span. But
Like
I
Freeport playing
Yes.
long.
absolutely.
so,
But I don't think overall that Dupec should have. I know there's a lot of Northern fans watching up here, but I don't think that that's anything Dupec would have to worry about.
there you go. Doug, that answers your question, buddy. As far as Class 2A, I mean, obviously we talked about St. Teresa. One of the teams that we did not mention, and I can't believe we forgot and bypassed because I guess I was just thinking they were Class 3A, but Wilmington is in 2A, and they do have that number 1 seed, as we stated before. What do you got on Wilmington, Greg?
Wilmington, they got 2 1,000-yard rushers, Jacob Friddle and Colin James. 6'4", 265-pound lineman that started 3 years, and a really good tight end linebacker, 6'3", 220. I guess he apparently also kicks very well. So I don't know how much kicking comes into it.
This time of year.
It can't hurt to have a solid kicker. Some teams still don't kick. But again, I don't know overall if they're the same. I don't know if anybody's the same old that they were 10 years ago. I don't know if I just
Well,
don't-
nobody's the same as they were 10
I was
years
just gonna
ago.
say that.
No, you know,
I mean, coaching may be the same.
I don't know if they're the typical 9-0 Wilmington team. Again, I don't know that for a
And-
fact.
and I would agree
that
with
it's a
you
good
there.
conference. Coal City's up there, Reed Custer's up there. They're another team to check out.
Right. And taking a look at some of this discussion, I mean, I've had this discussion with some people from Dupec because they were concerned on where Wilmington would go. And I would have to agree with you. I don't think that Wilmington is at the level that we saw in 2014 when they won state. I mean, we just saw them 2 years ago play Byron in the quarterfinals, and Byron beat them 32-0.
But that was also 3A. So
It was 3-8.
Right.
Now we're talking about them playing
But-
Julian and Mercer County.
Well, I'm not.
I just-
yeah. They're gonna roll through Julian, no doubt about that. Mercer County and Newman, that's gonna be interesting. But like you guys stated, if the running back for Newman is back to being healthy, what's his name? Williams.
Marcus
Williams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, we got to touch base on Newman because we haven't even talked about them yet. I had casted them off as being a 4-5 team, and they come through and win 2 games back to back and get in at 6.
I think he was out for some of the middle part of the season.
Yep.
I know, and again, this is just my opinion. I don't believe St. Bede beats them had he played. He didn't play it down in that game.
Yeah.
I think the Rock Ridge game he got hurt was maybe week 2.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
Third quarter of
Mhm.
they ended up losing that game, and that's not, don't take anything away from Rock Ridge. They had that game in the bag already when he was on the field.
I mean, I remember watching clips of him against your.
He's 6'1",
Morrison
he's
team.
220 pounds, 215, and he runs really hard.
Yeah, I mean, he looked it.
Yeah, he's an excellent basketball player.
That's when I shouted out the Newman uniforms on your
That's-
uni view
That's right.
because
Yeah.
I liked that look with the old blue and then the graphite paint.
Yeah,
That looked
yeah.
really sharp.
Ethan Van Landewitz,
Not as good as Orangeville.
fantastic.
Should have voted them.
Not even in the top 10.
I'm getting I'm never gonna live that one down.
Newman still has 5 really good linebackers. Ethan Van Landewitz seems like he's been there for 12
Yeah,
years. They
yeah.
they just say his name all the time because he makes a lot of the tackles, and 2-3 years in a row he's been doing that.
It's amazing to say, like, were we like sleeping on Sterling Newman? Like, how do you do that? They're a perennial state power, and yet we
I didn't
know,
think they beat Kewanee.
yeah, but that's why. It's because they, looking at the way their schedule was going, it was like, are they going to get there?
Yep.
And I think that the good programs show up this time of year.
I still
and,
think
and,
they're always dangerous, and you'd rather not play them.
yeah, and getting healthy with a guy like Marcus Williams.
Well, that
means
speaks
everything.
That speaks some volumes to where Coach Kretschmer's at with the program,
Yeah,
taking it over from Mike Poposi and keeping the blue machine going. And what we know we've
they still
we've
do
seen
the
over
same
all the
thing.
years,
Yep.
right? Exactly. So
You don't get the ball.
yeah,
They keep the ball from you.
Well, and speaking of, proud programs that have a rich tradition, they're going up against Mercer County, the former Alito Green Dragons, led by Andrew Hofer, former polo
Polo guy.
coach. Yeah. And, he had sent me earlier today, they're led by David Meese, running back, going for over 1,300 yards, but only in 7 games. He was knocked out with an injury early in the year, and they forfeited week 2 against Knoxville because of COVID issues. So, 1,300 yards on a limited schedule. So he's been the guy, the go-to guy for them. Defensively, they're scoring points. Defensively, too, the last 2 weeks, they've scored defensive touchdowns. So they're a team that several weeks ago, I looked kind of down their schedule and thought, man, record doesn't look great now, but their schedule was front-loaded. They could make a run. And they did. And then now they find themselves in the playoffs and in a really interesting matchup, I think, against Newman.
So that's did I mess the seeds up? What were the actual seeds? One of them 8-9 switched, and I didn't write
So
it down. Is
8
it at
is Mercer County.
then?
8 is Mercer County. Newman is 9. So
Okay,
it's at,
so it is at.
it's in
Okay.
Alito. Yep. George Pratt Memorial Field.
Yep.
And we haven't talked much about, we talked about McNamara. They're going up against Knoxville. Outside of a stumble against A-Town I know, here we go. It was a wet field. It was sloppy, and A-Town was able to get the win in those conditions. But this Knoxville team, outside of that stumble, man, they have been dominant in the Lincoln Trail. I think at one point, like, their first team offense, like, through 3 games, scored on every single possession they had the ball. So, I mean, they were rolling through the season. They're very much like a Forreston. They're going to ground him. I don't even want to know what's going on here. So, Forreston, much like Forreston, they're going to keep the ball on the ground, but they got a big line.
Yep.
And they got athletes that can find and create holes, or, can find the holes and get through them. Peyton Hankins, Kellen McClay, Garrett Larson is a big fullback for them. They're not going to throw the ball a whole lot, but they haven't needed to. It may be a tough matchup against Bishop McNamara, a team that's been battle tested against teams that do throw the ball, that already, that is played a bigger schedule. That it's a tough draw, but I've really liked what I've seen in Knoxville this year for sure.
A question that came up a little while ago.
was, why does IHSA say that the pairing show is October 26th when today's the 23rd? I'm not sure why they said it was the 26th, because it's always been listed as the 23rd. And really, I really
no
can't,
idea.
I really don't have an answer
I don't
for
know.
that.
I knew it was today.
Unless
I
it
didn't
was
know.
just a typo on what they were trying to
Figure out that I just say let us know.
Yeah. Good point. So yeah, I can't answer that because I don't know why. We've always known, and it was broadcast as being on today's show. I know that they were doing a version on NFHS, so maybe there's a replay coming on Monday or Tuesday. I'm not sure.
We can keep a couple more teams I know
Yeah,
about in
go.
2A. Are we going down 2A?
Yep.
Erie Prophetstown, they are the Track West Division champions.
This is Erie's first ever Three Rivers Conference title.
When Erie Prophetstown has been a co-op, yeah, it's their first conference
Even
champion.
when they weren't a conference. For Erie.
Oh, for
I'm
Erie.
sorry.
Okay. Wow.
Erie has never been a part of a conference
Wow.
title, I don't believe.
Okay. That's
From
I
what
knew.
I heard someone saying that. I guess I forgot about the co-op. P-Town had one conference years and years ago, probably when Brett Bielema played.
Yeah.
Well, but that, I mean,
Absolutely.
really, that was probably the last,
Yeah.
maybe 88.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, the
So
success
congrats
for them.
to the Panthers.
Yep, and I think they were a team that I don't know that we chalked them up to be in the top of the standings, on that side of the division. But they had a lot of guys coming back, and I think this spring made for a really interesting dynamic for a lot of different teams, because for those younger teams, you got a lot of experience in real gameplay less than a year before you jump back in for this fall season. So you got Colby Franks, Mason Misfeld, Connor Sibley, dynamic athletes for Erie Prophetstown that capitalized on that time. They didn't have, maybe 2 and 4 in the spring.
Yes.
So the success wasn't there necessarily,
Right.
but the reps were there, and now they really took advantage of it. Man, Colby Franks
And even the year before, I think they started as sophomores.
Yeah, I think they've been around.
I think it's been 3 years for these guys. And yes, Colby Franks
he's dynamic athlete. I
Fantastic
don't know if you
athlete.
guys have seen some of the highlights, but
I have not. I've heard of them through your podcast.
Yeah, he can throw the ball a little bit when they need to, but man, he can really do damage with his legs.
Yep.
And he's just that gamer mentality. When you need a big play,
Tough kid.
that kid's gonna make the play, and it's been fun to watch.
Okay, so there's a little bit of change to the 8-man playoff bracket.
This is breaking news.
Yes,
breaking news.
it's
on the
breaking
show.
news. The way we originally had it, with South Beloit at the 11th seed and St. Thomas More at the 12th seed, is actually the correct way.
Okay, so I have that.
St. Thomas More will be the 11th seed.
Ooh. Okay.
And South Beloit is the 12th seed. So we did have it switched around. We did have St. Thomas More as the 11 and South Beloit as the 12. They had an error in the recordings, and that is where we're at.
Good to know.
He believes me. I'm in.
So
That changes things.
it does change things just a little bit. South Beloit will be taking on FCW, and St. Thomas More will take on Martinsville
But that adds another quality team down
in
to the
south.
bottom.
It does. Keep going on. I have to excuse myself for a minute. So, Greg, I'm going to sneak by you here.
Well,
Go ahead, buddy.
the last team that I wanted to bring up in 2A was Rockridge. On the flip side of Erie Prophetstown,
Yes.
we talked a lot about Rockridge in the spring because they looked so dominant and went 6-0. And then this year, maybe we didn't see quite that level. They're still a very good football team.
I think their line graduated
Yes,
from the spring.
they're a young line, so I think
Yes,
they're learning
so
on the job. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I even wrote that down. Young offensive line. Obviously, though, we're in game 10 now.
Yeah.
They've had 9 games to figure it out, do whatever. But boy, Braden Deem at quarterback is fantastic. And I'm sick of watching him play against my Mustangs because for 3 years in a row, he's just that good. Peyton Locke is what he finished in the sprints. I know he was in the top 5 in the 100, 200.
Yep.
Something like that. Nate Henry at wide receiver, 6'4", 190 pounds.
That's a weapon. Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
That kid's good. They were all conference last year back for, I think they probably all played 3 seasons as well on the varsity. So
earlier this year, I went to Erie Prophetstown to see Rockridge versus Erie Prophetstown. You talk about Colby Franks.
Well, that was a
running.
scoring thing, wasn't it?
Yeah,
50
back
to
and forth.
48?
Yeah, both those teams it was a track meet, because there are track athletes as well. But Colby Franks and Braden Deem going back and forth that was fun. It was a ridiculous scoring game because the offenses were just so good.
And that's why I was earlier about Tri-Valley, because I'm telling you, Rockridge, they beat Newman. They lost to, I'm sure, Princeton.
Yeah.
Kewanee, they lost actually because they fumbled the ball running out the clock. Kewanee runs it back, or else they would have won that game and been 7-2.
So that's the thing is like this Rockridge team is sitting at 5-4. And I know they got Tri-Valley, a 9-0 team, but that obviously when they come in at 5-4, that's what you expect. That's what they expect. Man, but I think they come in with a lot of confidence. They're a 5-4 team that hung with Kewanee.
Yep.
And they played well to end their season. I
don't think they ever had a loss by more than a couple. I don't think anybody really put it to them.
I think they're a potentially dangerous team.
I agree. I think they're better than their record. That's what I would say for sure.
All right, we stalled. We got through 2A.
All right.
So, hey, one question for 2A.
One question for Class 2A.
Bottom.
Thoughts on Maroa Forsyth? Well, that's always a good one. Obviously, Maroa Forsyth is a team that we talk about every year. Personally, I have not seen them play. I did watch video clips of Athens here earlier this week because I wanted to get some more information on them, but they do exactly what I thought they did, which has not changed. But Maroa, in my opinion, I feel that they're a little bit down from what we typically see. Obviously, they had a weird shootout game last night that they won 70-42 over Riverton. But there was I know Riverton coughed up the ball 4 different times, which kind of helped lead to those 70 points. And Maroa did put up a big second quarter. The first quarter was like 14-6, and then the second quarter Maroa took off. But then Riverton came out after halftime and gave them pretty much a back and forth battle. I don't know enough about Maroa this year to give a great assessment on them. But if I just go through and I look at their schedule and I look at how they have played against teams that we are accustomed to seeing, I would back to Shane's statement where, we've seen all of 1A down. I think across the board, 1A, 2A, 3A, they're not to the same level as what we've seen in recent years. I think a lot of things are a little bit down. Now, what that brings is a lot more parity, which is a lot of fun to see because now you get into that any given Saturday, somebody's going to win. And that's also another point that Shane made earlier. You just never know what's going to happen. And I know, Jay, you've stated it a couple times as well. You got to show up and you got to be ready to play. You got to, as a coach, you got to bring the right game mindset to every play. You got to be prepared in every facet of what's going to be thrown at you and expect the unexpected at the same time. As Coach Lano would always say, there's always a little bit of luck in there when you get to the playoffs. Obviously, Maroa has a great coaching program with Coach Jostis and his staff, and they're always set up to do great things. And taking a look at where they're seated, I don't see why they can't make at least a quarterfinal run.
A good draw.
They have a very good draw.
Yeah, I would put them there.
Yeah. And, then you got, what really the big matchup I see in that bottom section is the Bismarck-Henning North Mac matchup. I think that is an interesting game right there. Bismarck-Henning's done great, but North Mac has been a team that I originally had as a team to watch coming out of the Sangamo early on in the South. And they were flirting with the 2A, 3A line anyway, because they've been in 3A in the past and they're in 2A now. And knowing that they have a loss or two due to COVID issues back in week 2 and week 3, which we were discussing before we ever went live on the show.
Yeah.
How much does that really impact their record? Because we know it was at least 1 game, if not 2 games in weeks 2 and 3, because they had an issue with where they had to go for their testing.
Yeah, so there was controversy down there as far as when and why they weren't able to play. But either way, getting past all that, yeah, it sits with potentially 2 losses when they're playing well to start the year. There's a team we talked about. So, again, kind of like we talked about the Rock Ridge, is 5-4 really what exactly they are? I don't know if that's their true identity.
So as far as Maroa, I definitely think Maroa is a team that's going to make a quarterfinal run. I think we can all agree to that. As far as getting past there, time's going to tell. I think you got Nashville there too. Nashville.
Well, I was gonna.
Did go to the.
I found just in searching their team this year, 15 returning starters, 9 starters back on defense for Nashville. They had an all-state player return, and let's not forget in 19 they were the representative from the South. Again, that never hurts when you your younger kids
that year.
Your younger kids see that, and now they're it really helps boost everything. So don't I wouldn't count them down there out at 8-1 either.
Yeah, I mean that's
a pretty good little group of 8 down there.
Yeah, that's a good quad right there because you got
tough one to call.
You got Pena in that mix too. And
yep.
I mean, Coach Huggins does a great job down there too. So he's always in the mix. Maybe not always getting the long playoff runs that we expect, but we're always talking about his team. So interesting.
But it's still hard to count out Maroa based on what they've just done over the last 15 years.
That history.
I was always told, don't count them out.
Yep.
Steve would preach it all the time.
Yep.
Coach Snyder.
Yep.
You ask him about Maroa.
Yeah.
He'll tell you all about it.
Yeah.
So they're gone.
Yeah.
They're there.
So that's where we're at there. What else do you guys see in Class 2A that strikes you a little bit?
I think we covered a lot of it there, bud.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So, thanks, Tyler. I appreciate that. Tyler wants to say we're doing a much better job with our show than the IHSA site. So
high standards.
Love it. Love it. Carrie, you got a question?
I do. A question from the audience. Since you just talked to Coach Hoffman, what are Dupex's keys to success to be the 3A state champions?
Ooh. Well, Dupex's keys to success to be a 3A state champion. Obviously, right now, with IC looming in the second round, and you lost a game to St. Teresa early in the year where St. Teresa pretty much controlled a large portion of that game, where they out-athleted the Rivermen. I think that's what you're going to see in IC. They're just going to have a few more athletes than what Dupec has. So in order to pull that upset, if that does come to fruition, let's not forget that you do have Piatone in round 1. And we did talk about that.
Mendota. No.
Oh, yeah, Mendota. I'm sorry. Mendota.
I mean, it's funny you say that, though, because I was thinking about that
I
today.
gotta
Because
update that.
back in 2012, when Robinson played for Rockford Lutheran, they were the big talk. And a lot of EPC drew Oregon the first round that year. And everybody talked about the EPC Lutheran second round matchup and what happened.
And it never happened.
Oregon came to town and waxed EPC.
So
you got to get there.
Yeah, you do got to get there. But
Here's the thing, though. As long as Dupec isn't overconfident, we can be as cocky as we want.
That's exactly it.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. As far as the team goes,
I remember that. Oregon was
you better go one game at a
Oregon
time.
was 5-4 that
5-4,
year.
Yep.
And
And EPC was 9-0.
EPC was 9-0.
But see, that's one of them things where Oregon probably losses to good teams. You just see that 5-4, and sometimes you got to look a little deeper than that.
But as far as what they got to do, you're in with the big boys, and you know what you're up against. I think that the Class 3A field has a lot more parity in it this year, outside of IC Catholic. But you're going to have to come prepared. You're going to have to put in the work. I've heard grumblings from last night's game that perhaps not everything was there. Yeah, you pulled out the 22-0 win over Stockton. I feel Stockton did play up to your level of play, but that's just it. You got to continue to play at that mindset, at that level of play in order to have success. You got to get the breaks in. You can't make mistakes. And the coach is going to tell you
They'll be
that.
fine. They can run the football now.
Yeah.
That changes everything. When you can run the football.
As long as it's called.
Oh, it'll be called.
Yeah. I mean, when they ran it, if they were going to do it, it would have been against Lena. I think they would have,
Nix the run game.
they
go to
learned
the
from
pass
last
game.
year
I
where they
agree.
had the game won.
Yeah.
They throw the football at the end. You learn from it. It showed they learned from it. They got down after having a big lead, and then they ran the football right at Lena. That would have been their time to kind of panic, I would say, and they didn't.
And going back to the original question, talking to Hoffman, he made that comment. He was there making sure that, hey, we're running the ball right now because we need to chew up clock. We're not going to make the same mistakes. We're going to get this W, and we're going to stick to the game plan. Now, that's what it takes. You got to have that coaching conversation to kind of, rail into people and make sure you're all on the same page. And, I really like where DuPec is going. They're doing everything the way that they should. They have a lot of involvement from both communities, not like what we've seen in EPC in past years. So it really helps when you got a good staff and then you got great communities on both
Yeah,
sides.
completely different.
Yeah, that bring everything together. And that's all of that has matriculated into what DuPec is right now and why they've had such great growth so fast. As far as 3A, who do you guys got as your contenders outside of IC? We've stated IC a lot, and I'm sure they're getting chubbies over it, but
I don't know.
This is a family-friendly show.
I mean, if you do get the quarterfinal matchup, I think that Princeton IC game would be a heck of a matchup.
Princeton stood out to me
It
right
kind of
away.
reminds me of when we went down to Stark County and Polo game and caught the Princeton IC game on the way back. It was kind of that had that special feel to it.
that was the year that Bishop McNamara. ran
I
over
think I was at
everybody.
that game.
Yeah,
You were. You're on the other side of the field from us.
You were on the other corner of the end zone.
That's right.
We saw
That's
that.
right. That's
We remember.
right. But that's
That
Again,
would be a
I-
heck of a matchup, I
Yeah.
would think.
before I knew IC would be in 3A. I always had Princeton as my number one team. Now I didn't know Kewanee might dip down and then they went back up. Obviously Kewanee beat them, so it's tougher to make that argument then. But Kewanee's in 4A, so they're not. But just when I'm thinking about Byron and all these teams, I still had Princeton. Obviously, you guys know I'm a homer anyway. But like I said, Princeton has done enough things on their own in the past few years that it has other people know about them now too. I mean, what they do in 19, they lost to Byron, wasn't that like 17-3 in the semi or 7-3?
7-3.
Yeah.
7-3 in the semifinals.
Again,
Yeah.
that's an either or type thing. So I think they've done enough to prove that they're a top level team. And again, Tegan Davis is somebody that can
Difference maker.
he is a difference maker.
Yeah.
Even at, the higher you go, the less one kid can really make a difference, usually seems like. But still in 3A, I think you get a kid, he can make all the difference in the world. So that would be my overall. But again, look at a team like Reed Custer. They beat Coal City, who that's a
Coal
3A
City's
team
a-
beating Coal City. That's a really tough program.
Especially with
4A
Coal City
school.
being ranked in
Coal
4A.
City.
Well, they're always ranked. I mean, it seems like they're always in the 4A mix. They're
Coach
they're a
Lawford.
wrestling school, man. They got tough kids. It's
Coach
and-
Lawford
and
does a great job.
Reed
with Coal
Custer beat them. Only lost to Wilmington by a score. They're a pretty good team, so they would be somebody I think to watch. 6'4" and 6'2" wide receivers. So that's a team that. Oh, and then I heard too they may have had a kid injured all year that might be back, just like you guys were talking about.
Akron.
Yes,
Yep.
correct. And again, just having a kid coming back out there could be a real good thing. So at least in the north, that would be.
Any teams in Class 3A that we haven't covered that you guys think could make some noise here? Obviously, we've talked about Williamsville. We haven't talked a whole lot about Mount Carmel. I mean, I know you got some information.
Yep,
on them.
I do just a
We've
little
seen
bit.
the Golden Aces at state, and well, it was probably almost a decade ago now. They were at 3A state when they got waxed by Aurora Christian. But you know, they've always put together good seasons. But for the longest time, they were in a conference in Indiana, and with the whole conversation about going to districts, they knew they had to get back into the state of Illinois. They joined the Little Illini Conference, but they still run amok in that conference too.
They do. They do. They're very senior heavy, which obviously you get into playoff time. That's what you want. They did have, Coach Brewer sent me a lot of information in their roster and whatnot. They had their senior quarterback went down preseason, so they had to stick a sophomore in, but he's done apparently a really good job, 700 yards passing, 600 rushing. So I don't know a lot about their team. I'm guessing that tells me they do a little bit of throwing and running. So
They're 9-0, but they had 2 forfeit wins. So
okay, that again,
it's an interesting note on their schedule.
Yep.
Who are the forfeit wins against? Because I think that they would have won those games regardless.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but
Yeah, you could be right. That
All I know is that Mount Carmel is definitely one of my bucket list places to go watch a game.
it is
The
this is a
Snake
cool
Pit.
venue. Yeah,
The Snake Pit. Got to get down there.
36 points they've given up in 7 games. So played well defensively.
Yep.
Yeah, they played they would have had Red Hill in week 1. They would have beat that
Yep.
game. Phelan Leadership Academy out of Indianapolis. I don't know anything about them, but chalk it up as a W.
There you go. Makes it easy. Yeah, there you go.
It sounds like one of those charter schools that doesn't have much of a program. Who knows? But I want to go back to 8-man real quick because Jay, you were getting ready to note some things on the little change of venues that we had here with STM going back to the 12 seed and South Beloit, or was it vice versa? STM going to 11 seed.
Yeah, they moved. He moved St. Thomas down and South Beloit up. And I just said that made it more. I think it makes it more interesting because Orangeville already played St. Thomas more, and it was a very close game. And Orangeville played South Beloit, and it was not a very close game. And I don't know what Martinsville brings. I know they're 7-2, but they're south.
I can't remember. Yeah, I know. And I can't remember who I was talking to, but they said that Martinsville was very high on their season. And who did they lose to? I'm trying to think what their schedule looked like.
I remember when they.
Yeah, I've pulled it up like 5,000 times.
I'll never remember. I shouldn't even.
That's all right. Their losses were to Flanagan and West Central. So
West Central.
Yep.
That's the one I.
And West Central is a big one. They lost
healthy
50
West
to 20.
Central.
Yeah, healthy West Central
Yep.
beat them 50-22. And Martinsville was 5-0. Their closest games were against Decatur Lutheran and Milford Cisna
What was
Park.
the score of the
Lutheran game?
West Central game?
West Central game? 50-22 for West Central. Yeah.
That's a big one.
But you're right. Changing the way that the landscape down here on that bottom half of the bracket.
But going back to our guy, Kerry's guy, Hunter Ashe, if he's still awake out there, I'm not sure. We talked about a team overlooked, and that was St. Thomas with their 5-4 record. And I think you move them down. I think you could see a 11-6 upset. I think that would be my upset.
Yeah, that becomes a marquee matchup right away in round 1.
It does. And then who they got sitting there in round 2, but your Orangeville Broncos.
Which, if they do it right, Orangeville would have to travel then down to
Champaign
Champaign again.
Oh, man.
Which
Yeah.
that's where just that one, whatever they did, changes everything.
Yeah.
Because you're looking at.
Do I get to join the bus? I'll cover that game if I can be on the bus ride.
Me, you, Stangs, and Coach Snyder.
I'm in, man.
We will go down. We'll tailgate. We'll maybe swing by Maroa.
Yeah.
Pick up Steve's godfather,
Yes.
head over. And watch
Justice
some,
will be busy with his own game planning.
Yeah.
But we'll definitely go watch that game. But that's what just that change there kind of makes it a little more interesting because you were looking at Martinsville beating South Beloit, or at least I was in my head.
Right.
And then Orangeville would host round 2.
Right.
That kind of changed it.
It does. It changes a big thing there.
Mhm.
So that's interesting. Carrie, you got any more questions coming through?
I don't.
Nothing from
Nothing
Hunter.
Yeah. Let's see. I don't have any other questions. You guys have anything else that you want to talk about?
I don't think you guys picked your 1A champ.
Oh, I did not pick my 1A champ, but I'm pretty sure everybody knows who I'm picking.
Of course.
My 1A
Well,
champ
so am I.
is Lena Winslow.
Yeah, that's kind of where I've thought that they have the most talent all year long. So
I could say whatever I wanted, but if I had
You can't pick
if I had to put money down,
You can't
pick
Morrison.
we almost made it through this whole thing.
You ranked them when they were 0-4.
I didn't need to hear it. It was hard enough on
We
me.
still love you, Greg.
All right, thank you.
What about 2A champ?
2A.
And obviously, we didn't get a lot of information on Bishop Mack, but they're hanging out in there.
Yeah, that's a.
So I didn't want to have to pick this one yet.
Well, now you're on the spot.
This is it.
This is it.
Somebody else pick first.
I'm going with St. Teresa. They've been my pick all year. I'm sticking with
Oh,
the
yeah.
Bulldogs. I think Ramsey gets it done.
Yep.
He's got one state title
I
under
was
his
looking
belt
up here. I forget
with a bunch of
down
runner-ups. Yeah, he's got one state title under his
there. I
belt.
usually only look at the north.
Bunch of runner-ups. I just
the
think
winner.
it's time for him to get title number 2 in his Hall of Fame career. And I think he's got the team that can do it. This team's much better than the team he had in 2019 and much better than the Jacardier-led teams, too. They got a much deeper offensive and defensive line. They're much faster all around the ball. Oh, man, Jacardier was awesome to watch. But, Denham Cook is a beast.
Yeah, at first glance, I would agree with St. Teresa.
I like St. Teresa. Breeze Mater Dei kind of hangs out down there at 9-0.
Know about them.
Yeah. They're a team loosely followed a little bit. I've always put them in my rankings throughout the year. So that's a team that kind of hangs out. I don't know if I'm really pull the trigger though and say they're my state champ, but
So who you pulling the trigger on?
oh man.
Yeah, I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah, you are. That's good. That's all right.
That's what makes it fun.
I'll do it then. Yeah, I'll say Mater Dei. They're gonna come through and they're gonna.
Shane, what do you got?
Jesus.
Come on, Shane, I need to book it.
Yeah, no, there's no book in this.
Yeah,
I think there's just a lot of different options.
I just don't know about
Honestly.
McNamara. I mean, if they're
That's a
if
question
they're a
mark.
team like they could be, like they were the last time I saw them.
I mean, it could be a Bishop Mack, St. Teresa.
Sure.
When I started looking through things, it's like there's a possibility there. Like,
Yeah.
certainly.
I think
Yeah.
St. Teresa.
If Bishop Mack wasn't in that north bracket, boy, that would be that's a tough
hey,
one.
say that louder for the mic. What'd you say?
St. Teresa.
Jay, what you
Not
got?
sold.
I don't know many of these 2A teams,
I'm surprised.
so I go with my heart, Aurora Forsyth.
Got to pick the his story.
Yep.
The history.
Hard to pick against that. That's a good pick.
I know. I screwed that up. It's all right. All right. Class 3A. Who's your champ, Greg? Pruis.
Oh, you started with me on the 2A.
All right. I'll go with Armstrong.
Yeah.
You know what? Let's do it. Ryan Pearson brings a state title to
Woo!
Princeton, Illinois.
Woo! I
Let's
didn't want to
do
be the
it.
first one to say it.
Let's go. All right.
I
Yeah.
mean, we talk about IC and 3A, but you don't have to go that far back. I think it was 2017. They beat Byron 7-0 in the semifinals.
Yeah.
I mean, if they do end up beating Princeton, I mean, you're probably going to have Byron waiting there in the semifinal matchup with them.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not going to have that oh no IC mentality. I mean, losing to them. Granted, it's 4 years past, but you can play with them in your head. But I like Princeton. I really do.
Jay, what you got?
Don't give me the BS line that you don't know these teams.
No, I do know these teams, and after Byron, I look at it and think who's left. I'm going with Byron.
okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
That's,
Going
my, that's my
Byron.
team.
See, I have
Year.
to. I mean, Byron's always strong. Don't get me wrong. But in talking to different people throughout the area close to the Big Northern, they've stated that the Big Northern is just not to the point
I know,
we're used
but
to
they're-
seeing.
but they got the-
still
they-
won them all.
They got.
I know. They're
and they
they're
got-
there.
and they got the 1 seed road.
Yes, they do.
But Byron, you forever using that always the bridesmaid, never the bride. I mean, that fits Byron pretty well.
I just don't know if I've heard the same talk out of this Byron. Like they don't have an Ellsbury. They don't have a.
Exactly.
We're close enough to Byron to hear if they got some really spectacular kid.
Quiet.
And again, that doesn't mean you're
The
not.
only thing I
right.
heard was Colbert last night on the sidelines down in Polo saying, "Well, you got Byron down there." I know
But
where
I know-
Byron's at.
I know that the coach up there's done it for a while. They've been good for a while. They're always near the top. So it's not a bad.
You
It's
almost,
not a
you
bad
almost
call.
put them to that semifinal every year.
Yes.
You have
Yeah.
to put
Oh,
them in
yeah.
the semifinal with this draw.
That's a given, I
Yeah.
would think.
You know what I mean? So they're
Yep.
already there.
Yep.
I don't know.
So you're going Byron. Who you got?
Well, I'm just saying, if Wilmington was in 3A and comes in 8
Well,
and
if
1,
Duplex was in 3A, we'd change it too. But
no, but I'm just saying,
unfortunately, they're.
I love the
three.
Rivermen.
Reed Custer
We
is
know
right
this.
there with Wilmington, and I'm saying, throw out the enrollments. If Wilmington's 9-0 in 3A, you're definitely looking at
They
them because
retired his
'cause they're
jersey
always
and
there.
Duplex, and he never even played for him.
Reed Custer, I think, is right.
I mean,
Is
it's
very
very
on
white,
that table. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I was meaning if Duplex was in 2A, my
No,
Yeah.
2A.
I
I
knew
would
what you were
definitely
saying.
put
Yeah.
Duplex. I really felt
But
that
I raised
Duplex-
Wilmington up a class.
That's
and
kind of
not down.
changed within the last few weeks.
Yeah.
You look at 2A kind of being strong. And
Yeah.
3A having an opportunity.
Well,
I think that's kind of
It has
really
changed.
shifted.
So I mean, you bring up a great point there. I still got my money on IC. But I like the whole Princeton concept. I really do. Seeing them play.
I will root for Princeton. Honestly, again, if I had what I tell you I pick and what I would pick if I had to bet $100 are two totally different things.
But
I want Princeton to win. I'd be thrilled if they won. But if I had to bet $100 on it, I wouldn't say it so fast, I guess. is
Right,
what I'm
right,
saying. I would really have to look at IC.
But looking at the 2A, 3A playoff field, we've seen it building up throughout the course of the season. And you could tell, in years past, it was really 2A, 1A, and then 3A outside of when IC and Bishop Mack were there, right? And because you knew the two teams, you knew it was going to be Byron in either Monticello or Williamsville. And the rest of the field was just there, right? Now, 3A looks a lot stronger, and 2A definitely looks very strong. And, we were talking about Dupec teetering down into 2A and what their possibilities were of a state championship run. And I felt, and I still feel, had they fallen into 2A, they would
Are
have
they
a
close?
legitimate shot. They're a little bit off. The cutoff was 416.5. They're at 438.
Okay, so there's
So-
at least a few teams probably in
Yeah.
between that. But,
Right.
But that's not that far. 20 kids isn't that far off of being there.
Correct. So had Dupec fallen in there, I would definitely put them in state title contention talk. Now, you bring up a great point. Is 2A actually a stronger field than what 3A is right
I don't
now?
think so.
You don't think so?
I don't think so.
So, I mean, there is that argument there because you take a look at different rankings and ratings, and you can fill out the 2A field faster than you do the 3A field, 1 through 10. So, when you take a look at those concepts, granted, they're just proverbial numbers spit out through raw data information statistically, not actually man-to-man Jimmy and Joe's, but when you take a look at that information, 2A definitely has a very good shot of being just as strong, if not slightly stronger than 3A. But I think this 3A field's awesome. It's a lot, like you said, you're like at the beginning of the show when you said, well, don't ask Kyle about 3A South. But I do feel that 3A is definitely a lot more fun to watch this year.
Yeah, I agree. Yep. When you look at teams like Tolono Unity and where Mount Carmel being 9-0, and even going back up top, Dupec, IC Catholic, Princeton, Byron. Yeah, I think it's
Well, and another team that I really,
Star-studded,
I had a
basically.
team
What's that?
I,
It's star-studded. At the
Yeah.
top.
Yep.
and a team I was looking at early in the season, and they fell off the rails, and then they had to win in week 9 just to get in. Was Duke Coin down there at the 10 seed.
Yep.
And they get a good draw there with Carlinville.
Yep.
You got a 5-4 and 7-2, and it's a 7-10 seed.
Wow. Yeah, you're right.
So, and I'm not sure exactly all what transpired to DeCoin's record, because after they got down, I think it was to 2-3 or 3-3 or whatever, I kind of started dismissing them a little bit. But and I clearly did not have them in my original projections heading into week 9, because I didn't think they were going to get to 5-4, but they made it happen, and here they are. So it is, you got a lot of known names throughout the 3A field, historical known names. It's gonna be great. Any closing thoughts?
I'm excited. I'm ready to get going.
Carrie, we got any more questions?
Hunter?
Oh, if I get my 6th playoff game this year, will be the 100th playoff game that I've watched.
Oh my gosh.
I
wow.
I got a spreadsheet at home that I've kept throughout the years. Starting from, I played in some, so those count. But my dad was taking me to games when I was younger.
Make sure Steve
So-
gets a jersey.
Yeah. Steve has to get you a jersey.
For what?
Yeah.
That's
For
our shout
wearing-
out to Jay Lou.
Yeah, you need to get a 100 jersey.
You do.
Hey, Steve.
Jay, you're being held responsible for that. You
I will-
have Steve-
I will hold
Hold
Steve
on.
responsible, I
Coach
promise.
Snyder.
Steve Snyder, I know you're still on because you just text me. You need to get this guy a Morrison jersey that says 100 across it. So when you get that, let Greg know he needs it. Okay,
Yep.
he's your J. Lou super fan.
Check the size before you buy it.
Oh, there you go. He just said deal. He just said deal. See, I knew it. Attaboy.
I love you,
Thanks,
Coach.
Snyder.
You're the best.
So with that, this is going to wrap up our playoff show. We hope you enjoyed the show. It was a lot of fun bringing out all the information. Great discussion points. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me tonight. I know a couple of you traveled quite a long distance to be here, and I greatly appreciate that. But
Ton of fun.
obviously, it's paid dividends because we've gotten a lot of kudos for our show tonight. So thank you. For you out there, the viewers, thanks for tuning in. It was great to be able to bring this presentation for you. And we look forward to a great playoff run. As always, root for the NUIC.